For those who don't know, THORChain is the first decentralized exchange to swap real Bitcoin. You can use every Bitcoin wallet in the world, and you don't have to connect it to a website. You can do this with Ethereum, XRP, BNB, Tron, Doge, and many more. Eventually, guys, we'll be able to swap any token from any wallet. It's going to be great. THORChain is turning into a full layer one where apps can be built on top of it. The new app layer unlocks lending, perps, Bitcoin-backed stablecoins, token launchpad, NFTs, prediction markets, and much more. We just went borrowing, just went live. So check that out. I'm curious to ask the THORWallet guys if they're going to be adding that. So stay tuned for that answer. THORChain isn't just a decentralized exchange, it's becoming the protocol of pure, uncensored liquidity. Swapping on THORChain is permissionless. There is no KYC, and anyone in the world can use it. To swap on THORChain, I'm going to give you two options today. The first option is you can go to thorchain.org, click on swap. New features and functionality are being added to the site over the next few months. So keep an eye out for that. And if you see any bugs, guys, please use the email on top. Additionally, we have THORWallet, which they are a wallet app. They also have their own interface. So please consider using them as well if you want to use a wallet app as well. They're absolutely great. I use THORWallet myself. I love THORWallet. Absolutely fantastic. And I'm really excited to talk to them so you guys can learn more about them. Also, guys, THORChain's token is called Rune, and that is spelled R-U-N-E. You don't need to buy or hold Rune to place a swap on THORChain, but the fees deducted from your swaps are used to buy Rune. And this is the Rune that is the yield that goes to liquidity pools and nodes. There are no block rewards on THORChain. 100% of the yield is real, and THORChain is currently deflationary with 5% revenue burned. Always remember, guys, if you hold Rune on a centralized exchange, you need to withdraw that into self-custody because these tokens can be used to short sell Rune and drive the price down. And once in self-custody, please look into bonding your Rune. You bond your Rune to a node and it helps earn yield and secures the network. A great site to use that is runebond.com. Very simple. All you have to do is find a node, request a whitelist, and bond your Rune. And it's going to be getting easier in the future, guys. THORChain also has another token called TCY. This is Tango Charlie Yankee. This token is kind of like a preferred stock where 10% of the protocol's revenue goes to these token holders. If you deposit crypto into savers or took out a loan on THORChain, make sure to claim your TCY token so you can start collecting this yield. And anyone can buy the TC token as well. There's a THORChain community Discord and Telegram you can join to learn all about THORChain and make new friends. To find the links, go to @Thor Community. That's at THOR Community account on X. Guys, we always try to aim these spaces towards anyone, whether you're brand new or a veteran on the THORChain. So there will be something for you as well. And this is an open stage. So if you have any questions whatsoever, you can come up and ask questions. Let's get this party started, guys. My name is Denny. I have another account, Patriot Sounds, and I also help run the Rune Bond account. I've been educating THORChain going on 5 years now. I love it. I'm having so much fun. Before I kick it to Kenton and then Crypto XZ, I just got a few laundry here. There's been some awesome volume lately. We want to make sure that it's good, so keep an eye out. And I already covered the second laundry, so that is good. But I do have a special thing I want to say about THORWallet before I kick it to Kenton. I really like THORWallet, you guys. Back in February when we had the whole THORFi stuff, very stressful time for everybody. And I was in communications and DMs and just going like a wild man talking to everybody. I really appreciate THORWallet for keeping swaps open on THORChain. Not every interface did that, and no shade to interfaces that didn't do it. They had their reasons. That's fine. But THORWallet really impressed me because a lot of people were wanting, to swap Rune. Obviously, they were scared. And I don't believe in censorship. It doesn't matter what's going on. People should always be allowed to use THORChain no matter what. And THORWallet was one of the few interfaces that kept swaps open. So I am eternally grateful for that. And I think that was actually very helpful to stabilize the situation because there was a lot of stuff going on. But that's being said, guys, I'm going to go ahead and kick it to Kenton. Kenton, go ahead. How you doing?
Yeah, thanks, Patriot. Great intro as always. And I am actually interested to talk more about the Thor wallet staying on. We can get to that a bit later, I think. And so I just want to say like there's over the last, I don't know, several months, maybe even longer, and like there's been some frustration in the community about the branding between THORChain and Thor wallet, and it's confusing and this and that, and people should rebrand, all this kind of stuff. And I was thinking, well, this doesn't have to be confrontational. Like, let's just talk to each other. So I reached out to THORWallet guys and like, hey, like, what do you guys think about all this rebranding and whatnot? And CryptoXE replied, and we ended up chatting. I think we had like probably about chat for about an hour. It was a really good chat to hear his perspective inside of it. And then I asked him like, "Well, like, do you mind sharing this with the community? Like having a space?" He's like, "Yeah, absolutely." So that is the um, origin story for this space, right? To kind of hear, his side of the story on the branding and everything, which I thought was actually a really good perspective that I think everyone should hear. And and then elephant in the room is the drama from the past week. So I don't know if you want to touch on that at all, Crypto XC. I'm happy to chat about it. If not, we just kind of move forward. I'm happy with that too. But yeah, I just want to celebrate you guys, you for coming and joining the space and representing THORWallet today.
Thank you. Yeah, excited to be here. Happy Saturday, and yeah, I think it's good to have these spaces, and thanks for reaching out to us. And we're always open to be here, share what we're doing, also share our experience as builders and also as room holders. So yeah, excited to the space, the questions, and clarify anything that is open.
Well, maybe let's get into it. So let's just go. So what are your, I guess, what are your thoughts on rebranding? Um, do you think it's okay? Thor Wallet keeps, the name Thor and then the logo, it's similar. Do you think it confuses people? Um, are you looking to rebrand already on your own? Do you think THORChain should rebrand? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think it's there's a lot to unpack here, and I think it's important to give a bit of context for not everyone has been here for a while, but for those that do not have heard about Thor Wallet, so I think that the first thing is check it out, download Thor Wallet. Is available on iOS, Android. We also have a web app. But we are one of the OG projects in THORChain. We born out of the THORChain ecosystem, and then we kind of grew up to many more things. But we have always been cross-chain maximalist, and the idea of THORChain, which captivated us back then, was the possibility to do native cross-chain swaps, without any intermediaries. And now it seems a bit more, like not a big deal, but in reality, that was something that did not exist. So when we started building back in 2021, there was really no way to do this without going through bridges, and very soon after we had the collapse of with the bear market FTX, and people really learned the hard way why decentralization matters, why holding your own keys, why using DEX versus SEX matters. And I think this goes a little bit in waves, like people forget, and then when the bear market comes, people get reminders of why this is important. But like, so all this to say that we were from the very beginning big believers on that something like THORChain, and basically THORChain matters, right? Like having the possibility to swap. If you cannot swap, then there's a lot of limitations, and you lose a lot what you can do with crypto. So definitely infrastructure that matters. And even today, truly decentralized places where you can swap with size is quite limited. So I think that that's the background. The other thing, the other thing that matters is, so first of all, yeah, so THORChain invested in THORWallet at the beginning to build a mobile wallet, because at that time there was no mobile wallet for the THORChain community, right? So that was kind of the goal, and we delivered that. Back in the time, there were some web interfaces, and so on, but there was no really mobile wallet, and that's kind of how we started. We believe that mobile first was the way to go. Eventually, people want to be connected, they want to trade on the go. And we set up on this wonderful journey now, almost 4 years of building um, the most beautiful, or the most user friendly interface, where, as you said, we share that same goal, where your user can come and just swap any token to any token. That has always been the goal. We not always been there, but it's something that the user experience has definitely improved. So I think that that's a bit of the starting point. Then the other thing is like, THORChain and THORWallet, we go along, for many years. So it has been for us a win-win relationship. And we have always been very, big fans, of course, not only because we come from there, but we very aligned, and we have added everything that THORChain, every service, every chain, everything that has come. We have been always one of the first services to bring it to the market. And that's not just to be, at the forefront, but it's because we wanted that more chains people can trade decentrally, and that was, why we were born. Um, then there's a couple of other important points in time. I remember that at the beginning was kind of only THORChain native interfaces, but maybe I don't know, it was 2022 or something like that. We started dabbling with the idea of let's get THORChain integrated in other places, and I think that that's a wonderful idea, and that was a big win, and that actually was some effort that Nariam guys took for almost a year and a half, and they did a lot of work to get that done. And I'm gonna touch that onto that a little bit more in a second. But that was a big point where it kind of took it from our community to really bring in THORChain into other places, right? So we got integrated into Trust Wallet, we got integrated into Ledger, and so on. And it was slowly, but then suddenly we got a lot of integrations. Before we had the big integration, because Ledger came later, they had a lot of troubles. But I think the very first one that really did matter was Trust Wallet. And I remember being vocal in that point and saying like, this is wonderful for THORChain, but at the same time, we need to have like some special place for THORChain native interfaces. Why? Because we are the ones that care the most. We are the ones that have been here for a long time. We are the ones that have integrated everything. Like we have some, we're the ones that had the most skin in the game. And I remember thinking back then, uh, it is great to have these other distributors in place, but at the same time, there needs to be like special consideration for THORChain native, or like, let's say, THORChain aligned interfaces. Why? Because when things get tough, those guys that integrated as distributors, they are less keen to, they were not so into the game. They had a business, and then if they're scared, and that was one of the things that I mentioned very long time ago. And I remember that back then people were using the same argument as now, as like, oh, you guys are scared now. There's competition coming, and I think that is very naive and very intellectually dishonest argument, because from Tor Wallet we have always been the underdog, and we're fine with that. We have gone through ups and downs, and we're here, and we will continue to build. But back then, that was a key point. Like, not saying we should not integrate, but we should say, hey, we should also be aware that those that are torch and aligned are gonna be more supportive if shit hits the fan. Then obviously later things happen with Torfi, and then we see that kind of play out as I foreseen. And there's nothing else we could have done. But it's still like, if you think about Binance, March, and Solana, whether they protect their ecosystem in a certain way, because they know that you grew together, and that makes sense, right? You want others to grow as well. You want to be integrated to other places, but you also want to be a bit protective of your own ecosystem, because those are the guys that are going to be there um, in the worst time. Then I think other point in time that was important was later when Maya came. Uh, we as I said, we are cross chain maximalists, right? And one of the problems we had back in the day, I think it's almost 3 years now or close to that, was that THORChain from time to time, Bitcoin was down, or Atom was down, or Ethereum was down. There was some upgrade and so on. And during this particular time, it could be a few hours, it could be 1 to 3 days. There were no swaps available. So at that time, we realized, wait a second, we need also kind of a fallback solution, right? Like if no one can swap, that's not good. And not only from a business perspective, but also from the starting point that this is a very important infrastructure for everyone in crypto, right? Like if you cannot swap any more Ethereum to Bitcoin for whatever reason, then everyone loses. So that was kind of our for us the concept of Maya clicked very quickly on saying uh, not too much as a competitor, but as a supportive uh, avenue, right? Like if THORChain was down for 1 minute or whatever time, you could see route through Maya, and then the idea of having some chains in Maya, some chains in THORChain was attractive, and that's how we started and helping them to with their own launch and so on. Then I think the next step was going forward, and everyone kept building, and uh, and THORChain did put a lot of effort into bring building these distribution channels. Um, and then when these distribution channels were built, one of the things that we kind of were a bit vocal was that we believe it was not such a great idea to build this relationship with distributor channels and not own that relationship, right? Like if you said, like it was kind of said, instead of saying integrate Torch and here's our API, it was always said integrate Torch and via someone else. Eventually, that turned out to not be, such a good outcome, right? Because uh, you don't own the relationship to those parties. But either way, even with this context, I think if we look back into around 1 year, I think pretty much THORChain had won the space on cross-chain. We were so much ahead of everyone else. Yeah, there were some competitors and so on, but we definitely had the upper hand, and THORChain was dominating. And I think it is important to also acknowledge that we had, as THORChain, there had been mistakes that had cost us a lot. And this is where things started to take us into the current scenario, which is. THORChain had the issues with THORFi, right? And before THORFi, like there was no one else. Like maybe they were integrated and so on, but all the big integrators were only THORChain. When THORFi happened, everyone stopped swaps on THORChain. I think there were maybe one or three max that didn't, but like all the big players, THORWallet, everyone else uh, put on hold. And they're in their free right to do that. But from our perspective, we said we put a big warning. There's some volatility happening, but swap on your own under your own risk. But we kept swaps going because we believe that, like at that point in time, if we would have shot swaps through THORWallet, then like the market was in full panic. So we just said this is the time to be there for THORChain, and as sometimes or many times THORChain has been there for us. Um, Fortunately, we were able to turn the page. The market kind of calmed down, but I really believe had we not have done that, we might be in a worse position that we are now. Um, so that is quite important. The other important aspect is while this unraveling was happening, um, we instead of saying, "Oh well, torching was it," I think we just put our hands to work, and we were quite active. Me personally into building the proposals. Unfortunately, later that was something that Alex took over and improved, but um, that later ended up in what was TCY. So all of this to say that we were there to help, and not just because our self-interest, but we believe this is core technology on the space. And we also believe that it didn't make sense. The market was in full panic, but like before this was happening a month ago, we were saying, oh, we are the top, last year we were the top 5 revenue protocol. So for us, it didn't make sense. You're making so much revenue, but suddenly it's that like for us, that was something unacceptable. And we did everything we could to prevent that the protocol died. Um, so during this period, we were contacted like a very big amount of times. Every conversation we had was, "Oh, are you guys gonna rebrand?" Because at that point, being associated to THORChain was pretty nuclear and toxic. And we said, "You know what? We don't see a reason to rebrand. We have been building this brand for years, and we were happy to earn our battle scars. Why? Because." well, we believed the project would survive, and that's what later on happened. But every talk we had with investors, partners, everyone was pushing us very hard to rebrand, and they were saying, "Oh, being associated with THORChain is terrible. You guys need to rebrand." And some other people might consider that was the good way to go, but for us, that was really not in the table, because we knew that the worst was over, and even though it had some negative point at that moment, we believe that you know the protocol would survive and it will still play a big role, and as I said, carry those car battles. So um, at that point, yeah, we kept building and so on. So I find it a bit funny now that people are are upset that we kind of this confusion about THORChain, THORWallet, where I think probably no one else in the community has represented THORChain as good as we have. With our we have always been very direct and honest in our approach, and every opportunity we had to support the protocol, we have been there. So it's quite hilarious now that some say, "Oh, well, your benefit." No, I mean it has been a win-win since, as I said from the beginning. We don't forget where we come from. We also have grown, fortunately, quite a lot. Um, but now that things are getting a little bit better, and people have very short-term memory, now they're saying, "Oh, you guys should rebrand, or THORChain should rebrand." That for me is just ridiculous. Like, first of all, no one should rebrand. Like, THORChain needs to, like, there has all of this has been learnings. It's not easy to build. What we're doing is not hard to do, and there have been some mistakes. So that is part of building. I don't think anyone has done these things with any malicious intent. So it's just part of the journey of entrepreneurship. So I think that's where we stand. Like, from our perspective, in like we never believed that was the right approach for us to rebrand. Um, and I think just the last point on this was that for many years, Core Wallet was pushing very hard to give clarity, because there's a lot of confusion on different protocols, different torture related projects, and there has been a lot of steps through history where we said this is not good. We should make it very clear what is what. You guys are this is this. The volume is from Torch and not from these other projects, etc. Um, but back then, Torchen had no interest on making that clarity, and it seems a bit ironic now that that interest is now. So I think we have been pretty consistent with our approach through the years.
That's and first off, just welcome Joel to the stage. Nice to have you, sir. I'm sure we'll get you in just a second. But that's why I mentioned that moment during that time before you did. I wanted to say it right away because if someone from a project says it first, people might think that you're trying to sell them something. No, that what you just said is 100% true. During the February time, I was doing my best to stabilize everything, and so was Kent, and so was others too. And I had many DMs with various interfaces, and I won't lie, I was a little angry on a lot of them, but I was saying, hey, reactivate swaps, just you got to let people do what you got to do. And you guys were one of the biggest ones that did not stop swaps, and I cannot tell you how helpful that was during that time. So I just want to put my personal reputation online here and say what you just said is absolutely true, and I was so appreciative of you on that day. I'll never forget it, and I just really appreciate that. Additionally, on THORWallet, guys, I know you'll probably talk about this. THORWallet's history has been interesting. When they first released their mobile app, and I think crypto, Pedro will say the same thing. So a lot of people were upset that it was slow and things like that, and it wasn't an efficient wallet. And the reason why I mention this is because they recognized that, and they ripped out the entire guts of their wallet and redid it from the ground up. And right now, THORWallet is an extremely quick, responsive, and wonderful wallet. And that's why when you look at the app store, I haven't checked in a while. I think you guys have like 4.1 or 4 stars instead of 5. A lot of those reviews are from the time when THORWallet was a little sluggish, but those days are gone, guys. So I really implore anyone here, whether you're listening live or the recording of this, give Thor Wallet a shot. Download it, play with it, and if you like it, give them 5 stars so that they can get not only rewarded for the ethos that they have been pushing for so long, but it's just the different wallet at the time where a lot of those reviews came in. So I just want to say that. Kenton, I'll kick it to you if you've got anything.
Thanks, man.
No, that's great, man. Yeah. Um, Crypto Z, great background. Thank you. I'm just curious about when you said the other partners turned off trading during the Thorify. Like, were they doing it to like kind of like just to protect their reputation, or were there actually risk of like users losing funds in the swaps? And like, what I guess maybe another way to ask this is what by Thorwallet by Thorwallet leaving swapping on, were you taking on any additional risk, or were your users taking on the risk? Like what was yeah, can you walk us through that?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously there was definitely there were risks there, right? Because so and every interface. That's why I'm a free market maximalist. Like everyone can build their own things, everyone has agency, and everyone can decide on their own. But how I saw it and how we thought about that was that back in that time when this was unraveling, people needed a place to swap, right? Like if there's panic, but people can still execute. The panic is a bit more control. Whoever wants to sell sells, whatever. If the door is closed, right, or there's a very tiny door, then it becomes a bigger problem, right? Because everyone wants to go through that tiny door. So the panic is much bigger. The real risk that was happening during that time was that some nodes were planning to leave. People were removing their LPs. THORChain value was going down. So like at the end of the day, having swaps going there was a bit riskier, especially if you were doing, for example, streaming swaps, right? Because those streaming swaps, while the uncertainty was happening, the ARBs were not being very efficient. So you could be in a position where a user tries to swap, and then they will get worse execution, and they lose money. So that's why when we decided to keep the swaps open, we did put a big banner saying there's a lot of volatility going on. So and also as Petrus was saying, we have this is our third version of that, but back then we had like this interface where you could do like immediate swap or the streaming swap, and we were just saying in our chats and in the Discord and so on, like if you want to swap and take less risk, is to not do streaming swaps. But we left it open, but we did put a big disclosure. And I think what other people were thinking were just that they were uncomfortable putting, they we no one knew if THORChain was gonna survive at that point, right? They were like, I don't know, 20 nodes that wanted to leave the chain, and we dropped like from 180 or something to like 80 cents or something as crazy like that. So at that point, I think many people in the community, including even projects, I think they just like how I see it is from one day everyone was thinking THORChain is great, and the next day it's set. That was kind of the perception for me, and that didn't make sense at all because I was thinking, wait a second. Yesterday we were making so much money, like even in the previous month we made so much many millions in swap, and now people are saying this is dead. Let's just let it die. It didn't make absolute sense to me. So obviously there was risk on doing that, but we also believe that users are free to do what they want, and if you give them enough information, then they can decide whether they want to stop or not.
Yeah, very true.
Nice.
100%. Real quick, we got some people up here. I just want to see if you guys have any comments on that. I'll go with Joel real quick. You want to test your mic there, sir? And we'll go to Easy next.
Hey, how's it going? How's the mic quality right here?
We sound great, man. Go ahead.
Yeah, honestly, like I hadn't had anything specifically prepared. I just saw the space was going, decided to join, and it let me join as a speaker right away. So, yay. But yeah, I mean, I have to say I've been a user of THORChain since the ChaosNet days. And then I've been a user of THORWallet since the very early days as well, because they were kind of the launch partners with Maya Protocol, which supports all the chains I really like, in particular Dash, but also Easy Dash. I do
Hey,
whatever
Joel,
they would.
you're going in and out. It's like
Yeah,
you're moving forward and
maybe
back from your mic.
a little closer to the mic, brother, and I think you'll be good.
Yeah, how about now?
Sound
Any
better.
different?
Much better, yeah.
Yeah, it's the old earbuds. But yeah, so I've been using THORWallet for a while. I'm very big support of that. Um, as far as the branding thing, first of all, I don't think. Couple quick thoughts.
Uh,
Generally
hey,
speaking.
Joel, you're breaking up again. You're incomprehensible, unfortunately. Are you able to swap
Weird.
mics, maybe?
I can. I just have to go to the other room. I'll be right back.
Yeah, no problem, and we'll come right back to you. But yeah, it breaking up so bad, we literally can't understand a word, unfortunately. But we'll go to Easy, and we'll go right back to you, brother. Easy, you want to check your mic? Go ahead. Easy, I'll give you a few more seconds if you want to try and unmute. Okay, having some little technical difficulties there, or maybe you don't realize you are a speaker. That could be possible. You just joined as a speaker, so you're like, oh shoot. Okay. Well, we'll kick it back to crypto. Pedro. Were you want to say something, buddy?
Yeah. So I think like that was a bit of the background so that people understand. Not everyone sees or have full information of what went through and so on, but that basically um, leads us to where we are today. And I think one of the other important points I wanted to mention is that like there's some core principles where I think my argument or rationale comes from, which is first, competition is good for the user, right? Like we believe compete or die, and that applies to us, that applies to THORChain, and basically that applies to everyone. The other thing I think is quite important is distribution matters, right? Like if you have access to a plenty of ways to get to users, that is normally a very important business advantage. One because I was trying to think how can we put an analogy, and one analogy I like to think about is um, now that THORChain has more competition, right? Like I believe that in Trust Wallet, Thor Wallet, and others, like when people want to swap, they want a service to be provided, right? They want to swap Bitcoin to Ethereum, and I think people are not so, for the majority. Some will say, "Oh, I prefer to do THORChain, and if it's not THORChain, don't do it." But I think for the majority of people, they just want a service to be done, and they don't have so much loyalty to who provides that service. And I think that's why I like to think about a bit of THORChain being like, like if you think in the context of gas stations or petrol stations, like THORChain, like someone wants to get refill their gas, so that would be THORChain, right? Like the Shell, BPX, and you just want gas, but that could be provided by several people. Of course, those people do compete on cost themselves, but most people don't have too much. Like if no one says, "Oh, I'm," very few people will say, "Oh, I'm a Shell enthusiast," right? Like some will, but the majority says, "Oh, if Exxon is cheaper, I just use Exxon." I think it's a little bit a good analogy, and Trust Wallet, Ledger, and so on, they are kind of the gas stations, right? Yeah, you can build your own shell stations, but at the end, a lot of the business comes from being inside the distribution channels, and I think that also brings to the next point. I think a lot of the discussion that Kenton, myself, and other people have had is I believe there's a bit of an animosity towards UIs over the last few months, and I think it comes from a couple of misunderstood points. So first of all, we are partners, right? Like we if we bring volume, we win. Obviously, not all volume goes to THORChain, and we will talk on that in a second. But the reality that was that people were looking at certain metrics, like, oh well, we charge 20 BPS versus, I don't know, like 1% in ledger or whatever. Well, that is true on a nominal value, but um, Familiar Cow did an interesting point about this as well. THORChain does not make only money on, the final end user swaps. A lot of THORChain's volume is on arbitrage. So when you put into consideration all the volume that THORChain was generating, THORChain did make more money on the net dollar value that interfaces themselves. So when you see things more objectively, then you realize, wait, we need, of course, there's not really a downside to have your own interface. I mean, there are some regulatory perspectives as well that I mentioned, but in reality, THORChain has its own interface. But I think that believing that interfaces like us or Ledger or Trust are net negative is not good. And also, it's not that people believe we're net negative. It's just that people had a bit of a conflict thinking we are making more money than THORChain is. Well, it's not the reality. The numbers do not say that. So on a nominal value, yes, but on net dollars earned is not the case. So I think that's an important point to also kind of frame the discussion.
Yeah, for sure. And I, I hope I made it clear, and I've said this a bunch of times. What I'm working on is nothing to do about replacing or getting rid of partners. They're still important. We still need you. We still want you. I hope we get you know 10, 20 more wallets. Right? We want to be everywhere. Um, and from my perspective as a THORChain community member, is that we just need a place somewhere when we tell somebody to use THORChain, we need a place to send them. Like how do to use THORChain, and so that's the goal with the front end, and then from the marketing point of view, then we can actually just the marketing funnel can all go to the THORChain front end, and I actually think by us being more like taking an active approach and communicating THORChain's message is that'll help clean up the whole branding issue. Like on the it was kind of like that bus analogy, or that meme, the two guys in the bus, one's on the dark side, one's on the bright side. And on the dark side is Thor Wallet is copying the THORChain brand, and on the bright side of the bus is Thor Wallet is copying THORChain brand. So you can look at the negatives, but look at the positives, right? Like everything you said, Crypto XC is you want to keep the THORChain brand. You believe in THORChain. You're backing it. You've been there from the beginning. You're there through the hard times. These are people we want on our side, right? You are our allies. And so, when you think about it like that, we should want more people to name their products after THORChain, right? This is how people celebrate THORChain and support it and get out to the world. And so like look at Ethereum. You've got Athena, you have EtherFi, I'm sure there's all kinds of other things that start with ETH, right? So but people understand the difference. And so I just think with if we just have some proper communication and whatnot, like I think the confusion is easy to separate, and I think especially once we have our own front end, it'll be more obvious that okay, this is THORChain, and that is a partner of THORChain, and and then in theory, we'd like all kinds of Thor this, Thor that to pop up everywhere because that's the way of people telling the world that THORChain is a good brand that we want to associate ourselves with THORChain. So,
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
I think there's also a few points that kind of come from this the point that you're just making, which is um, I think yesterday or like just a few days ago, Chainflip announced right that they were integrated in MetaMask, Phantom. Like in this week, they had like three big integrations, and it just makes me wonder, like if you would be someone in Chainflip, like they're pretty happy what has happened, right? Like on like if you wanted to hurt Torchen in a certain way, I think that things could have not played better that as they have had. Like we had such a massive, and not only them, but like in general, any competitor, we had a massive edge. we shoot ourselves in the foot. Then a lot of integrators are planning to find competitors. Then when that's happening, like there's also the integrators that are there. They start to be quote unquote attacked and so on. And to be honest, we'll keep building. We don't fully, this doesn't bother us. But I think that is a bit that's what the situation is. And while at the same time, like we are not making big efforts, and in or at least that I know, a lot of the effort for BD has disappeared. And we need to win that back, like MetaMask, Phantom. I mean, we discussed that when you and I were talking. We need to get into those places. And what you're doing on the interface, I think that's fine. Those are things that are not mutually exclusive. Like you can have your own interface. Like Near has its own, Chainflip has its own. I disagree on certain aspects because also, like, we have been here for a very long time, and we have also experienced different regulatory regimes. And I remember back in the day when the three later agencies were coming. Uh, it was good to say, well, we are the protocol, there are the interfaces, let me put in contact with certain interface, etc. Right? Because at some point, if we are the only place where you can swap decentrally on big size, there's going to be a lot of pressure. And we saw that as well, right? When TORFI was happening, there was a lot of pressure to censor, to shut down, and even to do screening, etc. I think that risks exist, and that was a smart move back in the day. um, I mean, other competitors do try to not be so decentralized in that way, and I thought that was an advantage. Now, when we run both, then that risk comes back. But that's just that's something that needs to be with the treasury, or whoever needs to be accepting that risk. But the reality is that people focus on the on the trees, and not on the big picture. So, like, the reality is why things started to happen and unraveling. And then, so first of all was, oh, interfaces are making more money. Not true. Um, then the other point that was saying is that, well, you guys integrated other providers. And I think here I also find it a bit interesting because we are just a reflection of volume, right? Like, we live by volume, THORChain lives by volume, and at the end, that's the only thing that matters. Do you make swaps or you don't make swaps? And I think every interface first wants more routes, right? Because you can capture more volume. Um, but at the same time, like, if you start being not competitive, a lot of people have multiple providers where they can just go swap somewhere else. So the interfaces themselves see volume going down, and they need to react, right? Because you need to survive. And then they integrate other protocols and so on. And that kind of it just is like a second order effect. And then that turns out to be reflected on THORChain, where THORChain volumes were lower. And then kind of the analysis, oh, that's because you guys are prioritizing someone else. That's, I believe, at least from our case, we always have everyone on the same ground, right? Like, if you get a better quote, we'll just route where the better quote is. And that is not because we have any favorites. That's because we know that if you don't do that, then swappers go somewhere else. Um, so that's why we have integrated other providers, mainly because some routes are not there, and also because the volume, goes down. And I think THORChain has kind of missed the boat on this. A lot of, like, not recognition on this, that we are becoming less efficient on certain routes. We are being sometimes outcompeted, not all the time, but sometimes, and that's why competitors are growing. Um, we can argue about some of them being funded so that they can have lower fees, but at the end that will not sustain forever. But the reality, competition is there. They're competing in certain routes. We need to become more competitive. But what the solution now to say, well, we have our own interface, that's pretty much good in that perspective. Nothing stops us to create our own things, own our own pot on that place. But that doesn't change the fact that on the distribution channels, you're still being outbid. And that was one of the key points I wanted to put out there. Like what, and I know there's development work being done there, but I don't like to mask it in a way where, oh well, now because we forced THORChain to be one, at the end we want that the total volume of THORChain as a net grows. That needs to be the main KPI.
Absolutely. Coke, I see your hand up. I want to reply quick. I completely agree with you. Like, we should not stop working on making THORChain quotes better. Um, the and we absolutely still need to be distributed in all these other wallets, right? Like, um, if our own interface becomes, say, 90% of the volume, um, I get it. That's not necessarily a good thing. If it's if it grows, if all the if it's like the whole pie grows, everybody's volume is going up, but then our interface happens to be the largest just through natural, market forces, then in that scenario, I think that's a good problem to have. Like, we'll figure it out because we're all making money, right? And we'll figure out how to keep it going, how to keep it up. But yeah, in general, we definitely need all the distribution we can. And this is actually one of the goals of the site. We want to try and make it easy for people to fork it, to like go, copy and paste, create their own URL, and Kenton swap, Patriot swap with the Coke swap, whatever, and try and make it easy for people to create their own interface. And to go to influencers, KOLs, and whatever, be like, hey, you guys want to create a swap site on yourself for your users? Here you go. Add on your affiliate fee. But the one thing I'll say for everybody, I was complaining about no front end, complaining about marketing, and I started doing something about it. Like, I got active and I became an agent for change. And so, I would ask everyone else who's been apparently saying for over a year now that THORChain has to get better on quotes, like, help, get in the arena, like, do what you can to make that happen. Like, find the devs, write the code. Like, I don't know how to do that stuff, guys. Like, I'm not, I'm over my skis enough as it is with this front end. How to make the quotes better on THORChain, I don't know where to start. I wouldn't even know where to find the devs to do that. But um I would ask if you guys know how, or like you're having, I assume some of you guys know better than me on how to do that. So yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to have a quick response to that, which is one of the other points I was thinking of was, people were saying, oh, well, we're not too happy because you have other, or, in general, interfaces have other routes. But this is kind of like a natural, evolution. And now the own interface of THORChain also has other routes, right? Like, even though you guys are prioritizing THORChain, but, that is a bit ironic in that sense, where people were saying, oh, well, we don't like THORWallet because they have integrated other routes. And then when we put our own interface for the THORChain, protocol, then we go through the same route. So, like, the point I'm trying to say is that these decisions most of the time are just, as you have been finding out, market driven, right? It's not because you want to integrate others, because it's that you realize the best for users is to have alternatives. So, like, once this you start getting more into the building and the interface, you start to understand a bit better why these decisions have been made. And what we have been saying back to the community is not like, oh, we don't want THORChain to, we don't want other protocols to be there. It's just that users want that, and you guys are doing the same. So, like, when community or some members, not everyone, right, complain. Well, the reality is, once you get into the arena and build, then you're faced with that business reality, which is the interface costs money to run. If the THORChain treasury can pay it, then fine, then we can be at no cost. But you cannot be in a place where the THORChain treasury is not paying and you also are charging no fees. So, like, those things cannot coexist, right? Like, and that has been our point.
Um, Yeah, totally hear you there. I really quickly, I know you got your hand up with the Coke, but Joel came up. He had some mic issues, so I want to kick it to Joel. Then we'll go to with the Coke. Go ahead, Joel.
Yeah, how's it going? Is this a much better microphone now,
You
finally?
sound
Much
so
better.
beautiful. Go ahead.
Thank you. Listen, I just blushed a little bit.
You should
But
have.
yeah, so just my general thought, and I've kind of written up some stuff over the last week about this, about the whole, situation, etc. I It's not really like a super focused thought, but basically since the beginning, THORChain was the one cross-chain swap enabler, and it just, no competition. It's great. It works. And one of the, in my opinion, genius moves for especially something so emergent was the integration route, as far as it's not like, oh, go to our swap site and then if you can make your own if you want, but it's the whole get integrated into every single wallet, every single thing, i.e., kind of like the swap kit route type thing. That's kind of what made it like real, where from a user experience perspective, if I want something that I don't have, the more steps I have to go to in between end up kind of ruining the experience for me. And so, um, for example, um, I am, if I want, I tend to not use THORChain very often at all these days. And I'll give you the reasons why. So, number one is the roots. What I want to swap for what is almost never supported on THORChain itself. It is sometimes supported, or more often on the Maya protocol. And in the things I care about most are, I'm in a lot of Dash, of course. I have Zcash, and then the, I guess, cheapest stablecoin option tends to be USDC on Arbitrum, and then sometimes you go from like Bitcoin to all that. And so all that is encapsulated in the Maya protocol. Not really anything I need on THORChain. There are things like Litecoin and Bitcoin Cash, but I can't get them into, again, stuff that I need to. So because of the routes, I don't tend to use it nearly as much. But also, I have not tried Memoless yet. So Memoless is definitely something that really changes a lot. But then the other thing is, like, I have wallets and they don't always have connect to wallet, whatever capabilities that would allow you to actually use a THORChain interface of any kind. And so typically I'd have to move it to a separate wallet. So for example, I have had a Thor wallet that I use exclusively for this kind of stuff, where I send funds there that I need to then use to swap, as opposed to being able to do it directly from the wallet. And one of the pain points, of course, was the ability to only have one wallet in THORWallet, because I couldn't figure out how to get and stake the token in order to get multiple wallets. That's a different subject. But yeah, the point is, I can't. The routes aren't there necessarily, and up until Memoless, I didn't really have a lot of good ways to swap from just any wallet. And a lot of that stuff, if you're doing stuff with paperwork of any kind, it does create an accounting nightmare of like, okay, I want to pay this invoice. I have, let's just say, Dash. How do I get to, USDC on ETH, say? And having to then move it to a separate wallet, which now I have to like keep track of, and then having to then do the swap and all this other stuff. All the extra steps make it complicated. It's so, beyond that, of course, like timing and price execution. Like sometimes I'm trying to pay for something, and it's like an open invoice, and I just use a centralized swap service because it just works. It just kind of does that. And so, I would love, like, philosophically, really like to use um, THORChain and the Maya protocol a lot more. But I kind of feel like the and I have to say, the biggest things, right? Things like Memoless are things that really work, and the routes are something that it's been something of like a conflict over the years, because um, not to drag up old stuff, but it kind of does have a little bit of a bearing on where we are today. In the early days of THORChain, there was a lot of talk of adding a whole bunch of other chains. Some of them were, for example, Dash and Zcash. They never did get added. And so Maya took them, and Maya, congrats, you got all the volume, you got all the hype, you got all that kind of stuff from that. And now it seems like I hear THORChain might be seeking to add Zcash, but then there was the whole Monero. Do we want to add it? Do we not want to do it? Let's not do it. It's too risky. Whatever. Okay, wait. It's popular again. JP wants to do it. I don't know. And a lot of this is like missed opportunity that competitors don't necessarily have those same qualms. So basically there's been a prioritization issue, I would say, of like not seeing what the end user really wants, what really helps them over the years. Of course, this is a very inconsistent message, by the way, because then there is stuff like, again, Memolist coming around, helping things out, adding a couple more routes. Although, we do need Solana like 3 years ago. And the sooner we get that, the better, for example. There's all these things that I kind of feel like a lot of the energy around in funding and other things like that has kind of gone into um, doing things that ended up not servicing the end user, which is the core of the protocol. So, for example, the whole THORFi thing. I mean, I have to say, in retro, even I did appreciate those features from a user perspective. They're very, attractive, but again, building leverage on top of the core swapper experience. And we all know it didn't end up to be very good. And then, to a certain extent, the interface thing now to me seems like, from an external perspective, again, I don't know what's being prioritized internally, seems kind of like a detour when the what should have sort of been um, the focus since day one has been UX, like getting it to be as simple and easy to use as possible, and speed to execution, better routes, and better fees. And I understand all those have been worked on, but if THORChain started out being the only game in town and now is significantly behind on a lot of these kinds of aspects, I think it would logically fall that there has been a misprioritization in some kinds of ways. And so that's what I would always just sort of advocate for, is to, I think it is handy to have your own interface. Of course, then you will run into the problem of filtering bad transactions of some kind. And some people say, look at THORChain, it's so censored, it's evil, censored, whatever people like to say. And then that will be, it's just something to deal with that, you haven't dealt with before, maybe. But just to reiterate, I do think that there has been um, a lot of sort of expensive lessons that, in my opinion, did not have to be learned. Whether it's the THORFi thing, I think that looking back, we could have said not just, yeah, that was a mistake, but like it was a mistake that we should have known about, to not bake leverage into the core protocol, and then misprioritizing adding chains, where now we have a lot of missing routes for swapping, and kind of there's a little too late on like the privacy coin angle, for example. And then also just this prioritization of like, oh, we're going to do all these other things that aren't things like memoless, like being able to chain across interfaces in one swap, those kinds of things that would really make a difference, I think, to just be the best swapping thing in the world. So that's kind of my little rant.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. First off, I want to agree on a lot of things you said. First off, definitely was a mistake not to add Dash. It was up to a vote on the node operators, and it should have added Dash. That was a big blunder. And to your point about multiple mistakes in the past, 100%, 100%, we have made a lot of mistakes, and we don't hide from that fact, and we own it. I think one of the coolest things, especially with the new interface and the things that are happening now, is that I really believe we've turned a corner and we've really grown and we've figured out what works and what doesn't. 1000%. I think go ahead, Joel, if you want to. I don't want to get too ahead.
Yeah, and I would say I don't know what percentage I give, like a 70%, 80% agree with you about learn from mistakes, turn the corner. Where I would not necessarily agree, and again, and I always have to, like, the problems, I like love you guys so much, and so I always feel bad when I say things that seem like too critical, because I don't want to come off across as a hater when I'm a very, very big supporter. As I was mentioning, the I think the dedicated interface is a good idea, as I've said. I also think that the way it has been approached, again, and this is like current, this is today, this is last couple months, whatever. is in a way of not thinking things through and learning from the mistakes of the past and sort of waiting to remake the mistakes in real time. So that's the one thing I would sort of say, yeah, yes, on the right path on a lot of things. But that's why I commented on the interface thing on that post, is because I see like not having thought through the entire process start to finish and just sort of maybe starting new costly mistakes that don't need to be made.
I assume you're talking about the open source angle and stuff like that. And here's the thing with, like, in defense of Kenton, it's like we're not tech. I'm not a developer, right? It's hard to when you're trying to answer all the different questions because there's so many moving parts, getting things inaccurate. So there's always room for improvement. And again, guys, I encourage you to go to Kenton's profile. It's not too far down in his feed. He made an article addressing all the questions. But one thing that I would slightly push back upon is I think the interface, although yeah, that's not been done perfectly, it is 100% the absolute most important move that we've made. And a lot of the reasons which we've spoken to earlier on, as I mentioned, the THORFi incident that really highlighted the importance of having our own front end. When we had that debacle happen where everything was going upside down, it showed how vulnerable we were for other interfaces to turn off THORChain on the flip of a switch, and we were unable to really allow people to swap. And it was for thank God for teams like THORWallet that, and maybe Leodex as well. I'm sure they were probably one of the ones where they kept the swaps going, right? That is so important to have our own way to keep us
Yeah,
alive and
let me
going.
let me
Go ahead.
interject on that a little bit. Yeah, I 100% agree on that. You do need you can't rely on external people entirely to just be able to exist. Even though they're the majority of your business, you do want to have a proof of concept at least fallback. I have to say the entire reason why anyone would try to um, turn off swap routes is because some people made some dumb shit that almost nuked the whole protocol. And so, like, if the turning off decision, all like, while I don't support it, and I'm glad THORWallet didn't do it, for example, it makes sense. Like, people don't want to turn off money, but if they think that the whole thing is going nuclear because, not to drag up the old stuff, but like JP pausing the thing in the middle of kind of causing a panic and all that, like, that's kind of one you have to take on the chin a little bit, you know?
Yeah, there's no disagreement there. Yeah, we don't disagree actually. I'm trying to figure out the point where we disagree. Yeah, like that was a big blunder, right? Like no one's denying that. But the fact that THORChain did not have its own ability to keep swaps available, we did not have our own unique interface or points of contact with THORChain to keep swaps going. And again, I would say it could be made the case that we were saved by protocols like THORWallet that allowed people to make decisions while they were panicking that ultimately helped save THORChain and stabilize the situation. That's why I said that first and foremost in the very beginning, how appreciative I am of like Pedro and others. Go ahead, Pedro.
Yeah, thanks. I think what Joel's saying is actually a quite interesting point because uh, we had the Torify incident, but right after was the hack of uh, what is
Bybit.
this guy's Bybit. Yeah. So, and I think what he's saying is very true. Like we are just kind of in the process of repeating these expensive lessons, and if that needs to be done, then that needs to be done. But the reality is, if we remember when this Bybit thing was happening, um, a lot of the competitors, so suddenly there were no swaps, right? Like it just shut down. And there is a reason for this. There is a reason for that. Why? Because they wanted to be the most decentralized. They wanted to be the most resilient. Then this was the only alternative, and this was the only alternative. Meaning, you need to have a difference between protocol and interfaces. You need to have as many as nodes running, etc. When you went through the other direction, which was you run your own interface, you run your own protocol, then guess what? You need to shut down ASAP because they're knocking on the door. And this is not something, oh, I believe, oh, we will see. This is actually things that did happen. And when those things were happening, literally like Maya and Torchain were the only places where you could continue to swap. Everything else went to dust. So what I'm saying is that yes, it's fine if we have THORChain has its own interface. What I dislike is that to giving a bit of a wrong Kool-Aid, like we need to understand what is the upside and we need to understand what are the downsides. The
Can I
upside,
interrupt?
yeah,
Okay,
sure.
I'm so sorry. I don't understand the argument being made, so I really want to just make sure we nail it home. What was the mistake that THORChain made when it came to Bybit? This is the part where I'm just not understanding the argument. So could you just take a second to clarify that? Because from my position, THORChain made the correct decision, but maybe I'm not understanding your argument. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. No, what I'm saying is actually THORChain did the right thing, which was, swaps needed to continue. THORChain does not hide any information, and it was just a decentralized protocol with where you can see what's going on. At that point, THORChain had no interface. THORChain was just, in this stand when this hack was happening, we were able to say, well, THORChain is not running any interface. THORChain has no is not any of the UIs. There's a complete separation, right? And there's also a very big decentralized network of nodes. So when you are coming, when a big hack like this was happening, and they wanted to kind of cut down the avenues for swapping and so on, only THORChain and Maya were able to kind of survive because of this setup. When we go to the other setup, which is like Chainflip and others, they had to cut down certain routes, right? Because they had their own interface. They were doing both, servicing the routes. They were also servicing their own interface. But like it was a bit more complex. So what I'm saying is, it's not good and right. Like what I'm saying is like one thing comes with certain advantages and also comes with certain disadvantages. And if we go in a direction where the protocol has its own interface, well, that's fine. You can capture some of the volume there. Hopefully, it grows a lot. That's okay. But you can also not, you know, try to cover the sun with a finger and saying, well, you're going to have to deal with a lot of these things. Like if there's a hack, like you need to stop that volume, because you cannot be in a world where those things will not, work together, which is, well, the interface of torching will not allow to swap certain routes. So that just as simple as it is, because otherwise whoever is leading this, either is Canton or whoever, will have to respond to some authorities. So, and this is, I don't think Chainflip or anyone has wanted to shut down, but they were just less decentralized. So that is the trade-off. Whether one is good or not, well, that's open for a discussion. But we do need to recognize that comes with certain added risks, and
Hmm.
that's the only thing I'm saying.
Yeah, this is me failing actually, or I really still don't understand the argument here, because the interface will have the same, block list as anyone else, and we could turn off the interface, but THORChain proper, the base layer will keep going. So I don't understand the argument. I'm really confused. I don't know what the difference is. Like if it's on THORChain STO rather thing, I mean, we could just pause the website and THORChain still carries on normally. So I can't parse the idea in my mind. I don't have clash with your idea. I'm unable to see the difference between, say, like a THORWallet or THORSwap or anything, relative to STO. To me, it functions much the same way. Could you try and clarify that for me?
Well, from what I remember historically, people from the team have been getting requests on who is this swapper, or why is this hack swapping on Torch, and etc. And basically, you need to create a system that is as uh, resilient as possible. And back then, the answer, which was the way to protect, was, well, we do not know who the node operators are, and Torchen also is not running any interface. That was kind of like the background and the rationale. So whenever anyone did came and asked for questions, well, basically, do not know. Now you're in a position where you do run the interface and run the swaps. So we had plenty of examples where the SEC came after interface which were doing both, and that's what I was saying. Like it's not good or bad. It's just that you're a higher risk. They did came after Uniswap. I mean, now the administration is way more friendlier to crypto in general, but that was kind of like a big layer of separation of concerns. We do the protocol, we create code, then node operators run the code. We have nothing to do with the node operators. And then you have the interfaces who have their own jurisdictions. When you are an interface and the protocol, then you basically run both front end and back end. So then if questions come and ask, you're at a much greater risk. And this is, this is things that have happened in the past. So will it happen again? We do not know. But what we did know is that when the Bybit hack was happening, there was tremendous pressure on everyone, right? And hopefully no one gets hacked again, but that seems unrealistic. So at some point, you guys will have whoever is managing this interface will have to deal with the same issues. And now we will have to also answer why, you know, the interface is processing some of that volume, which is what happened in the very big incident with Chainflip and others, and they had to immediately shut down everything.
I understand. And I think on the last space, Kenton talked about wanting to make, a filter that is, hopefully the best in the world, right? To spend a lot of time because, yeah, we want to make sure we put a good face forward about, not us wanting to swap exploited funds. So I totally understand what you're saying. And yeah, that's a different risk role. I think that's acutely aware. I mean, I should let Kenton speak on this, but I think that's acutely aware on his mind. But me speaking personally, I'm not THORChain, of course. I'm a community member, one of thousands. I think Bybit was probably the greatest moment for THORChain, in terms of not the fact that funds that were exploited swapped through, but we held on to that permissionless ethos under the most extraordinary pressure you could ever imagine. And that's do or die, right? That's do or die. We have to stay permissionless. I know Alex on my protocol says the same thing. So, and that's a hard thing for me. I have Square as like a lot of interfaces got really angry, like OKX and other stuff, but I don't know what to do there. I'll let Kenton speak here in a second, but honestly, for me, I don't know how I can square that argument. I'm like, well, that was the right thing to do. Like that's, if you want to live in a free world, if you want the next generations to be free, you have to stand your ground. You have to draw a line in the sand. You say, yes, we will do our best. We will work with any authority to help stop criminals, to track things, but the highway has to stay open. And if we close the highway, then we will lose everything. But I'll kick it to you, Kenton. I know with the Coke, thank you for being very patient. But go ahead, Kenton, if you want to speak on this.
Just reply quick. Like I completely agree with you, Crypto XE. Maybe here's a thought experiment. Maybe having our own front end could end up being a good thing. So we can just, if heaven forbid that Bybit example happens again, we can say, listen, we'll turn down our front end. Let's turn it off. Right? We can't turn off the protocol because it's separate and distinct. But we'll just turn off the front end. Right? We'll turn it off for a week or two, however long it takes for this to pass, and maybe that um, shows good faith that we're not trying to facilitate this.
I think
Um,
just to interject one point here, like the argument back then, right? It was not only, oh, you're doing swaps. The argument and the pressure was, why are you guys not, you know, if someone is trying to swap, why are you not, let's say, basically taking everything and recovering that, right? That was the biggest pressure point. And we said, well, we're not, we're just, like an avenue where people can go, but that there's no hidden information. But the core of the argument back then was they go to centralized exchanges and they see someone sending funds that are, let's say, tainted, which is another discussion, like how accurate this is, etc. But they will go to a centralized exchange and say, hey, by the way, this address deposit 100 Bitcoin, freeze them. This was the main point where they were saying, why is THORChain not freezing your the assets? And then we're saying, well, decentralized, we just allow anyone to swap, etc. When you have your own interface, the pressure was much greater to not only stop the swaps, they were just saying, oh, you will freeze that volume and so on. So that was where the core happened, and then some other players also had to deal with those things because they were running their own interface. So the question is not only, oh, will you stop it down, then there might be some pressure into say, well, now you need to run it and get that volume recovered or whatever. That was, it might not happen again one to one and so on, but this was one of the pressure points that was floating during those days.
I get it. I guess my point, I guess, where I came at it is, I mean, there's hundreds of wallets and dexes and websites. I mean, everyone else seems to be able to do wallet screening, blacklists. I mean, THORChain is not the only protocol in the world that's ever handled illicit funds. Everyone else is doing it. Everyone else has front ends. Everyone else has blacklists. Everyone else has wallet screening. Everyone else is fine. Like, but we can't. That doesn't make any sense to me. Um, so we just do the same wallet screening that everybody else does, and it's the best we can do. Um, I don't. It's not in my mind. If 100 other teams are doing it, it's not rocket science. We can do it too. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not saying, I don't think I'm saying you cannot do it. Like what I'm saying is that we just need to be very open on, yeah, THORChain can has its own interface, can get some volume there, good. But there's, as I said at the beginning of this topic, there are some positives and there are some negatives that need to be, like, we cannot, like, one of the things that we commonly do is just to kind of hide or ignore the downsides. We are fine to live with those downsides. That's fine. It doesn't mean that, oh, the world is over, you cannot do it. Other people are doing, but we cannot also ignore those things. When the protocol runs its own interface, there comes some repercussions of doing that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Just having your own interface, you have to take different considerations. But I think Kenton and the team, I think we understand that. But that is a point that needs to be said for sure. I want to go ahead and get to with the Coke. He's been so patient. Thank you, buddy. Like, what do you got for us?
Hey guys, yeah, it's been an interesting conversation, and I, of course, already forgot 20 times what I was supposed to ask, but because so much was discussed. Anyway, so I want to push back a little bit from to crypto XC. I'm pretty sure what the familiar cow said is that yes, not all the money is not made from swaps, but some of the money is made from moving the pools back in price as well. And he definitely didn't say that we earned more, because even I at the time did check out the affiliate fees paid out and how much THORChain made. And there was many days when there was 100K of affiliate fees paid out and THORChain only made 15K. So this argument, I think, is not 100% honest. There was a long period of time when we made less money than the affiliate fees for the front ends combined, of course. So, and one thing that I'm in a camp of Kenton for the front end is that it's absolutely necessary, especially at this environment that we are. And yeah, XA said many times in history, but yes, we had approached before that we want to separate the front end and the back end. But at the moment, at this point of time, we are willing to take the risk. And don't worry about us. Like we consider all those risks as a community, and it's not like loosey goosey. We'll flip out the front end, and we think we are like indestructible, and we will route all the illicit funds and this and that. And Kenton said many times it's gonna be compliant front end, blacklist everything. Like Kenton said, everybody else can do it. We can do it as well. And this doesn't change the argument still that we don't know who the all node operators are. So this argument is still valid. We cannot control what happens, just like Bitcoin. And yeah, I think, yeah, I'll let you speak or comment.
Yeah, so I think to the first point is, well, it would be good to go back and do some numbers, and then you can be more informed on the reality. But around 70% of the volume in THORChain is done by arbitrators, right? So when Cal did this analysis, what we care about, because it's very easy to, quote unquote, get misdirection with statistics. The reality was that we were saying, oh, Torch, for example, THORWallet was charging zero point 0.5, and then THORChain is only charging zero point 0.1, and that's unfair. And there was a lot of. Then people went and make the real numbers, And when you consider the entire volume, right, and that entire volume, 70+% is from arbitrators, and then on those swaps, the protocol makes money. When you tally all these numbers together, then you realize that the protocol was making or is making more money than all the interfaces together. So like in net money, in the net earnings, the protocol benefited a lot because they were doing all the volume from arbitrators. So yeah, it was a bit, let's say, not very clear when you compare only 1% to zero point 0.1. Then it was a bit, oh, it's not unfair and so on. What I'm saying is that all of this um, message needs to go away. First, because it's wrong, and second, because us or anyone else, we want we for THORChain to win, we need to win back volume in every interface. Like my concern right now is that, yeah, we want to continue the interface. Fine, keep it doing. As I said, we need more builders, not less builders. But my main problem is we focus a little bit away on what it matters. And what matters is speed of execution, chains, and better swaps, right? That's why we have lost volume across other competitors. So, and that's where I want the focus to continue. And we can say, well, it's a different team and so on. Well, my argument was that any budget that was not going toward those goals was a misallocation of budget, because that budget could have been used to hire more devs to tackle those goals. Because in my mind, these are the core problems that the protocol needs to be fixing. Anything else for me is, not really relevant, because what we care is, yeah, you can have your own protocol. Go into Chainflip, go into Near, and you will see they are making money in their own interfaces, but the bulk of the money they make is also from being everywhere. That doesn't mean they're mutually exclusive. We can continue this route, THORChain has its own protocol and so on. We need to correct the route on the partners. We need to go into Phantom. We need to go into MetaMask. We need to go into other wallets that are not there. And right now we're completely focused on, some infighting. And I think I say this on a very transparent way because we have skin in the game. We are also big room holders, and we just want the best for THORChain. I think many people see it very like, oh, these guys are scared they're gonna lose money. No, this actually has nothing to do with that. We have, as I said before in a couple of tweets, we have competed all the time since since we started. We're not afraid of competition. We actually encourage competition, but we want to have people working on those big problems we see. And I believe that having your own interface, while that's a nice thing, it kind of hides a bit the problem and say, oh, now we win routes because we're routing in the way that we want. Well, the reality is you're not winning these routes, right? Like the reality of those routes, you need to meet the user at the demand point, right? You need to meet them at Ledger, you need to meet it at Trust Wallet, at Ravi, everywhere. And those routes need to be competitive so that we can win that volume back.
Yeah,
Okay.
I under.
Oh, I wanted to can I add something quick, guys? So, as far as Trust Wallet making more money than THORChain, I think that's great. Like, I would love it if all of our wallets made 10 times more money than THORChain, because that's going to encourage more adoption of THORChain. I think that's awesome. I do not agree with I can't remember if the code actually exists or not. I think it does, but it was like probably about 2 years ago now. People wanted to put in some kind of tax on the affiliate fees, basically like a tariff. And I'm like, I don't know, I don't think it's a good idea, guys. That's it's great for the wallet to upcharge us. That's awesome. We want that, and we want them to make bank. We want them to make a lot of money, and it's their business, their relationship with their customer, how much they charge for upselling us, right? We want that. Um, and but the From THORChain's point of view, like it's just now we can focus on our own front end and grow our own user base that way. And then these other wallets, they're making upcharging. That's great. They can make that money, and they're supposed to use that money to go get new users that eventually come on THORChain, right? So I think it's great. I hope THORWallet makes a ton of money, makes way more money than what THORChain is. I think that's good for THORWallet, and that's what will keep THORWallet loyal to THORChain because we're helping them make that money. So yeah, I think the problem before is just not having our own front end, our own way to like direct our own audience to like um, so yeah, no, I think it's good you guys make money. I want you to. I think it's great.
Yeah. And real quick, before we go, so because of everything that's been going on the last 2 or 3 weeks or whatever, I think a lot of the conversation is kind of we've got kind of like todayism, right? But I really want to make sure we take the time to talk about all of this as much as possible because this is a great conversation. But I also want to transition back to talking about THORWallet proper because I know you guys are building really cool stuff. Like you got the Neo banks, you've got the Titan token. So let's keep this conversation going. But I just want to put it out there. I definitely want to give Pedro opportunity to talk about all the cool things that are coming on THORWallet because I think that's very important. Boone, I know you came up, but I know Joel. I just want to give Joel the hand, and then we'll go to you, sir. So go ahead, Joel.
Yes, and apologies for talking so much. I will have to
No, no,
leave
no.
very
You're fine.
soon.
You're fine, brother. Go ahead.
But I'll try to make it succinct. I like what Pedro was talking about with most of the revenue and business coming through integrations rather than from the key um, interfaces. And one thing I noticed, I have a good relationship with the Bitrefill team, who's probably done more for adoption of crypto as money than just about anyone in the space right now. And they consistently see massive user volume spikes when Bitrefill gets integrated directly into wallets and services. So they don't have to go to a website or a second app or something to use it. It's so I think that once we have swapping via THORChain or whatever else integrated into everything, that's kind of where things happen. And as like for example, from the Dash perspective, Dash has been on the Maya protocol for very many years, and we've always been looking to integrate it in directly into our wallets. And obviously, the Maya teams have always been very encouraging of this. But from a technical perspective, it just has not been really feasible because you can't, like, I cannot create a QR code on the wallet where someone could send Bitcoin to and it would swap via Maya to Dash backend because of there's no memoless. It just hasn't been feasible. And so, because of these kinds of limitations, as well as the speed limitations, um, because the Maya protocol views blocks and doesn't recognize the instant transaction functionality of Dash, so you have to wait a couple minutes. Because of that, it's likely that when we do get our swap integrated in the next, couple months or so, um, it will probably be uh, maybe a centralized provider first, or at the same time as a DEX aggregator that has Maya, but also might have some other DEXs as well that work more efficiently that don't have these limitations. It's so kind of just to reiterate that big point that I've been sort of making since the beginning of, first of all, integrations are the important thing, and they should, even though again should not detract from like a front end or whatever, but whatever makes them work the best should be made to work. And also there's protocol level things that are making it harder for um, integrations to prioritize specifically things like THORChain and Maya, and are giving competitors an edge. And that should be the red alert that, like, all hands on deck, we got to fix that to make it, as fast as possible, any wallet to any wallet without restrictions, better fees and better integrations, as you know. So I kind of repeated myself a little bit, but with a little bit of extra context. And I'm done talking. Thanks.
No, you're good, brother. And
I,
thank you so much for coming up and
I'll
sharing. Go
just
ahead, Kenton.
I just want to say I agree with you guys. I totally agree. Like, um, what if the new front end gets huge? And all the volume's going through there. We're all happy. Everyone's excited. Rune is at $10, blah blah blah. And but we haven't fixed any of those underlying issues with the speed and quotes, and we just we're getting nil volume from all the partners. It's all going through the front end. That's a problem. I don't think that's good, right? Like now we're just centralizing all the volume into one spot. But that's not good. So my goal with our front end is to be able to do things in parallel, right? We can still focus on improving quotes and everything, and getting in partners and keep that going. But we can also do our own front end alongside that. So it's yeah, just I really want to make clear is I'm not trying to say what I'm doing should be prioritized. What I'm doing, I'm trying to do what I'm doing in parallel. So I completely agree with you guys on all those other things being fixed.
Yeah, good conversation, guys. Let's just keep this going as much as we need in order to find some clarity here. We'll go to Boone and then we'll go with the Coke. Go ahead, Boone.
Yeah, I just had a pretty quick question for Pedro. Like, putting pretty much everything else aside, is it really a bad idea for? Oh, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. Go ahead, Boone.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Um, is it a bad idea for THORChain to just basically like expand businesses and instead of just being a swap provider, also be an aggregator, integrator, and just like vertically integrate in that way? And like, I mean, just like on the face value of like doing business, isn't that just like a good idea?
Yeah, I think my overview on this is I'm not saying Torchen should not do its own interface. Like the reason I say it was not, in my view, the best use of resources, this is the best way I would put it, is because I think that this removes resources from the key problems that I see. So what I believe is the highest priority, and as Joel said, all hands on board should be towards that. Laser focus on fixing those problems are how can we make the LP model more attractive? How can we do swaps uh, better, cheaper, and faster? And how can we integrate more chains? All of these three problems are extremely difficult engineering problems, and that's not canton for anyone. Like we actually, as I said before, we need to help, we need to have more builders. So my view was this is what will drive us forward. Anything else from my view is a distraction, right? So if we want to continue this route where there's an interface which is called THORChain, swap, kudos. Like no one is saying like, but what I am advocating for towards is like I want the focus to go back into solving these problems, because at the end of the day, even if as we go to the extreme example, right? Like a lot of the volume then transferred from, let's say they capture all the volume from THORChain, but THORChain's volume itself didn't grow. That helps no one. And what I'm saying is that this kind of hides a bit the problem, whereas, well, no one is routing to THORChain, so we will make our own interface that prioritize THORChain. That for me makes no sense, right? Because that is just addressing a problem and trying to pretend you address the problem, but you didn't really address the problem. The problem is you're not, or you're being outcompeted, right? So we need to go back and fix that, whether trying to pretend, oh, well, now we're going to route first and so on. Like that to me makes no sense. So what I'm saying is like, it is perfectly fine for Torsion to continue have its own interface with certain, things that you have to do some screen. That's fine. But my point across all this conversation has been we need to refocus because competitors are reaching our toes. Torching has a big benefit of having its own liquidity pool that they own, but that is where the pressuring and the key points are. That is, I don't think those two are separate, but in my view, we need to prioritize the latter.
Okay, and I don't disagree with anything. I mean, you said like, yeah, there's tons that the protocol could be doing better, but like, I mean, from my perspective, it's doing all of that. Like, I mean, yeah, maybe not as fast as people would want, like how long have we been waiting for Solana to be integrated, for example? But like, I don't know. I just trust that the devs are doing their best and it is what it is. But like, I don't feel you quite addressed my question, which was yes, THORChain could make improvements to be more competitive in the cross-chain swap market, but I'm saying what's wrong with entering an entirely new market of the aggregator market and like money, for example, that SwapKit's making that could be money that THORChain's making, and what's wrong with competing in a new market? Like that's just going to be better for THORChain.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think, and that's something that we've since years advocated towards. We say, why, when we go to integrators, why do we say integrate someone else instead of torching? And that was something that we were always very unhappy with because we kind of interplay THORChain and other name as synonyms, and we always said this is not smart. Let's not do it. But that was, you know, the mistakes of the past. Now we need to correct, re-own those relationships. What I'm saying is, money is finite, right? Like there's finite resources, and what I'm saying is, well, we have a product problem, which is we need to have more developers looking at this, right? A lot of smart guys left as well. Not that doesn't mean the team still has very good guys, but some people left. There are not too many guys that left. What I'm saying is that let's shed light into the reality, which is the core problems are engineering problems. So in my mind, the solution needs to come hire more engineers and fix those problems. The solution is not, oh, let's do marketing, oh, let's put another interface, because that money that's going there, let's say 5% of the revenue from the protocol. The question is, could we not use that to hire more people and then try to get more developers to fix that problem? And if the answer is no, then we're kind of in a tough spot, because that means that we cannot hire more to solve more technical problems.
I think there's a synergy between your arguments here because I think it works out, right? Because um, because with the marketing budget, let's assume success. Don't mean to be internal optimist up here, but let's assume success. Part of the fees from THORChain's income goes to developers, right? Was it 5%, if I'm not mistaken? So I think this synergizes quite well. I actually think marketing actually may be the solution to everything, where it brings in more revenue, which then we can pay for more developers to fix the underlying issues that Pedro is rightly pointing out. Um, I
That's
think
exactly the way I think about it too.
yeah, I think we're making the right decision here, guys. I think, and so I'm hoping that everyone's points gets addressed in here. We have another speaker, Paul. I want to go to With the Cope first, and then we're going to go to Paul. Just keep this things going. Go ahead with the Cope.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the Kenton's camp, and maybe Pedro doesn't. Well, not, I don't want to say doesn't understand, but the idea of this is, making front end, generating more income, and this is not gonna take away from Nine Realms. This our own front end is actually, it should be like cash flow, in a cash flow sense, net positive, even making more money to support more the developers. And the one screaming thing that's always in my mind that I think Kenton is addressing with the front end is that we give so much control away if we just integrate into the trust wallet, etc., etc. And the issue is that, and I'm not against them making money. It's amazing. But the thing is that if they, I mean, they make a lot of money. They say, oh, we should have more routes. Let's have near, let's have that, this and that. And then our engineering problem is has to fight against 50 other competitors as well. And that's not bad. But the thing is that other competitors in combined may have more money, more resources to subsidize those swaps, and that in the end means that we are not fighting enough in the same playing field. So even if we fix a couple of or most of our product engineering problems, we can still be out subsidized. So that's why I think it's a really smart move to have the front end, and that's why I'm really aligned with Kenton's view as well. And having this huge mind share that we have in THORChain ecosystem, to just put our energy somewhere. A lot of people like are sitting on literally sitting on the rune stack, but they cannot do anything to help the community go forward. I don't wanna. I have nothing against like Leo or Trustword, but I don't feel good sending my friends or like users there, because maybe next week somebody starts subsidizing, Trust Wallet has automatic route switching, and boom, all the effort, all the combined energy that we were doing, it just gets diluted. So that's why Kenton has the front end in mind as well. So we can at least have some compound effect when it comes to our like energy that we put towards THORChain.
Yeah, I think that just to answer to the other points, I think we need to be a bit critical and also honest, because we live in a competition world, right? Like we can close our eyes, but that doesn't change the reality. And what I'm saying is, guys, I've never said, oh, I said, I don't think doing a THORChain interface was the best use of resource. I never said don't do it. In Near does it, Chainflip does it. I said it's not a great use of resources considering what needs to be done, considering what are the key things that are our core problems. A lot of the volume, I would say 80 to 85% of the volume is from very narrow routes, right? Like from Ethereum to Bitcoin to Solana and stables. That's where all the volume is kind of concentrated. And as I made a post about it the other day, I put last 24-hour volume. Here is DeFi Llama. Here it is. So like this is no my idea. These are facts. So the question is, how can we bring the chains that people want? How can we make the swaps cheaper so that we win that volume? And what I'm basically have been trying to argue is all of these things for me seem a bit of a distraction. Yeah, of course, we can do it on parallel. Okay. But when you run a business, we face that same question in THORWallet, right? If something gets done, another thing cannot be done. Like, you need to, you have resources, you like those resources take away from something else. Well, we might say that's a good way of using resources. That's where we might agree to disagree. Like my view was, why do not we hire more devs? Because the problems are engineering. So that was where I'm coming from, the interface having its own place, having its own aggregator. That's something that we have said like from before you were here. That has been our position since day one. Like THORChain needs to have its own integrator. That's when you go to someone, you need to say integrate THORChain, not integrate somewhere else. Um, we never understood that, but that is we have no uh, misalignment there. The reality is that you need to meet the user where they are, right? Like, and if Trust Wallet wants to change the routes, they will. But the core point that I have communicated is what happens on interfaces is just a reflection that later happens on the chains themselves, right? So interfaces being forward or having the relationship to the customer, they see the transition very quickly. So if someone starts like if the volume starts to go in somewhere else, then they start seeing, oh, why is this happening? And most of the time, it's happening because either they're faster or they're cheaper. And it's not because we say, oh, we want to give preference to somebody else. But you need to meet the user where the demand is. That's clear. That doesn't mean you can also have your own shop, right? Like as I was saying in the past, like in the example I did at the beginning, you can also have your own gas station, right? And then say, oh, come to my gas station, here is cheaper, etc, but you're not going to be able to dominate all the market with your gas station. You need to be also in all the gas stations out there with your brand so that that you get distribution. So I think we are kind of agreeing in the sense that you can have the interface of THORChain and still go to the other um, or try to fix the other problems. My argument is just that these other problems are so difficult that maybe we should use all the resources that we have to try to fix those.
Interesting.
Yeah, but that's what we said. All the resources. So, in a sense, you say you understand us wanting to have our own front end, but in the end of the sentence, you close it up with all the resources development. I don't get it. What are we supposed to do, or what? How it's supposed to roll forward?
Higher,
Because in the
we need more chains, right? Everyone agrees here we wanted to have Solana before. I don't think anyone disagrees. Is that being fixed by adding an interface that THORChain knows? No. Uh, we agree that swap volume on THORChain is going down on key routes, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Bitcoin stables. Is that being fixed by having its own interface? No. It just, covering the problem, right? In your own interface, your volume is higher because that's how you created the logic. My point is we should not lie to ourselves in the sense that these are problems and the market cares about this, right? It doesn't mean, oh well, why does Ledger can charge more? Because they, people want convenience. Of course, its own interface of THORChain can grow, build its own let's say army of users and loyal users, etc. But still we want to win on the ledger, on Trust Wallet, on THORWallet, everywhere else. Because that's where the big money is, being winning everywhere, all the swaps. So my point is, yeah, let's try to get that fixed.
Yeah, let's
I see. And my point is that front end is not taking away energy from developers and the core problems.
and I think there's some agreement here. It's just the way you phrase it. Remember, guys, marketing hasn't technically even started yet. From my perspective, if I try to think of like when you look at a problem, what is the first principal problem? And I think that's money, right? If we have devs that are flush with cash, I think that solves just about everything, and that should be our goal. We're getting a lot of speakers up here. I want to make sure we move along, and Paul's been very patient. And before Paul speaks, I just want to introduce him a little bit. Paul is the main guy over there at THORWallet. Super awesome dude. And for those who don't know, Paul in the early days was absolutely instrumental in helping 9Realms. I think this was before SwapKit, if I'm not mistaken, in showing us the way of how we should properly integrate into other wallets and making it a more streamlined process. So if you guys are not following Paul or THORWallet, please do so now. This guy has been in the trenches with us since the beginning. He's not someone who gets often talked about because he's got his own interface. He's working hard, but he is an absolutely very important person. And I really appreciate what he has done for us and THORChain and just the whole ecosystem at whole. And he shares the ethos as well. So anyway, with that introduction out of the way, go ahead, Paul. What do you got for us, brother?
Oh, wow. Thanks so much for the intro. Much appreciated. I'm glad to hop on the spaces with you guys. I've been a big fan of THORChain for quite a number of years. I don't think we predate SwapKit, though. I think they were around before we got the integration live, although we're one of the few, I think, that did a fully direct integration with THORChain back when it was really, really hard. So we did try to guide some of the APIs and SDKs to make it easier. One thing I want to mention is I think THORChain bucked a massive trend in DeFi and in CeFi swap exchanges, DeFi in general, dApps and swap exchanges. And that trend that it managed to buck is that it actually gained adoption without its own front end. If you look at every single CeFi swap provider going as far back as Shapeshift, it had its own front end because it couldn't initially get into wallets. So, in my view, THORChain is going a bit backwards, right? Most protocols fight to get into the front ends of other apps, right? They give grants, they convince them, they help development resources, they do biz dev, they go to the conferences, they schmooze and whatnot to get into the wallet applications. And the front end is just a proof of concept. It's the MVP. It's showing people this thing can actually work. You look at Aave, it's got its front end. You look at Uniswap, it had to have its own front end. But in the end, the goal is to get into the wallets, which is what was mentioned. That's where the money's at, you know. And so THORChain somehow managed to do that, and that is like huge kudos to both the power of the protocol, the power of the biz dev team, and what value it brought to these different wallets. And I can't help but agree, though, with the fact that I don't know that it's a good use of dev resources because there are low hanging fruit. Well, I don't call them low hanging fruit. They can be actually quite difficult engineering feats that could reduce the swap fees. Even at the same liquidity. I had actually gotten a bit of a debate with Chad about this a couple of years ago, and that THORChain is still like full spread liquidity, meaning I put in, say, Rune BTC as a pool. Well, it's spread across the entire liquidity of pricing. So Uniswap went from V1 to V2, and then now V2 to V3, all with a ton of engineering and of course financial study, but with the goal of more efficiently maximizing liquidity, which at the end of the day reduces swap fees, which at the end of the day competes with the other dexes, right? Because Uniswap itself has to compete with other dexes, not on a cross-chain basis, but on the same chain basis. Did they do that necessarily by saying, hey, go use our interface where you can only get Uniswap? Not necessarily. I mean, sure, they have their own interface, but once again, the end goal is let's be competitive with the other equivalent dexes. And so I have no problem with there being an interface. Let me get that straight, because almost everything that we integrate has its own interface. But as far as what's going to fix the long-term problem, it's price competitiveness at the end of the day. And for every dollar spent on engineering to build a front end that you somehow manage to be able to get away without, is a dollar that's not spent on optimizing the protocols to get more volume through the protocol as opposed to the competitors. And we're getting knocked on our door all the time. Like Edge might be one of the few that actually does not have chain flip integrated. And I have different reasons for that. Um, but admittedly, yeah, we're missing out on giving our user base a cheaper route because of that. And it's becoming more compelling to get it integrated. But I'm a big THORChain fan, and I actually want to continue to support the ecosystem. And so, and, read your blog, Kenton, and one thing that's you mostly stated very correct observations. The one thing that I remember screamed as like red flag was when you said, you know, I go to these other interfaces, and you I think you'd mentioned a snapshot of using I don't know if it was Trust, and seeing this, like chain flip preferred, and we want to make THORChain preferred, and that's why you're building the interface. Well, it's not like they're preferred just because they're preferred. They're preferred because they're cheaper, right? This is best price route, and so that and just bucking that by hard coding that into another interface doesn't make it cheaper from the viewpoint of the protocol being cheaper, right? That's simply just favoring one versus another independent of price. So I want to keep that in mind is like, hey, you guys did an amazing thing in being able to buck this trend. Um, and it's a little bit backwards. Like I'm saying, nothing against the interfaces. They've all existed. Every single DeFi protocol has their own. But I think you should realize that's an amazing feat. And you've bypassed step one, jump straight to step two. Well, why go backwards?
Yeah, guys, honestly, I feel like I'm in the twilight zone. We just keep going in circles about this recommended path. Like, I understand it's ordering and, cheapest to most expensive. I get that. Like, I don't, that's fine. My position, and I'm quite sure everyone in the THORChain community agrees with me, is that when we want to tell somebody to use THORChain, how do we do that? Right? We need a place to send them so that when they go there, they're using THORChain. Because right now, in the past, when we say use THORChain, we would usually default to THORSwap. I think that's what most people did, and maybe THORWallet second. Sorry, Crypto XZ, but that's kind of my sense is that THORSwap was a de facto. So when you say use THORChain and somebody goes to THORSwap, and Chainflip pops up or near or whatever, well, that's not using THORChain. And when we tell someone to use THORChain, we are not purporting to say THORChain is the cheapest. This is our product. This is what we sell. It's what we want you to use, right? Um, so we want and need a place to send people to use THORChain. Um, and the other wallets, that's great. If you guys want, to your algorithm, however you're presenting it to your user, to present them the cheapest DEX, that is fine. That is great. That is a valid algorithm. All I'm saying is there's other algorithms out there, for the market to choose from. And the algorithm that the THORChain community wants to use is THORChain first, or THORChain only. So I, I don't know how many different ways to go over this. I don't think why is that so crazy or weird?
I think we
Yeah.
agree on this. Like the only specific point that I would disagree on this part was that, like I don't know if you guys see a bit the irony on um, having their own THORChain interface sending volume somewhere else, where it was kind of the initial point of the whole conversation. Oh well, we're going other protocols or other interfaces are sending volume somewhere else. Now we do it ourselves in a different way, but it turns out that we do not do it different. We do send volume somewhere else. That's where the only place where I'm a bit unhappy with the whole situation, because I believe Near is not doing that. Chainflame is not doing that. Like if you have your own protocol interface paid by the interface by the protocol, then should be its own interface for that particular protocol. But I think we do not disagree on that. I think if you go to Chainflame volume tracker, they do make money with their own interface. What I'm saying is, if you check their entire volume, right? Where do they make the most money? And that's going to be on they let's say I think it's around 20-30% they make on their own, and the rest is everywhere else. So what I'm saying is the realization is, okay, you can continue where you're in, push ahead, go on. I would prefer it doesn't route somewhere other protocols, but you can do whatever you guys want. My point is, like, I believe any dollar not going through the resources of fixing the LP, of fixing new chains and so on, those are dollars that are not going through these problems that we have. And just because you're, yeah, routing first to THORChain, at the end, that's not going to grow the pie. That's my point, right? We want THORChain to grow the pie, get bigger as a net volume. And I say this as with our own interest, because we are room holders. We want THORChain to succeed.
Um,
If I may,
yeah.
I'm gonna repeat my question to you, Pedro. Like, what, like building an aggregator? I don't see how that's not growing the pie. Like, if we break into a completely new market that Thorchain is not in, that's going to create new revenue. How is that not growing the pie?
I always said that
Mm.
we should have our own aggregator and integrate make it easier to integrate THORChain. But that was like since years. What I'm saying right now is, if you have to pay money for A, that money cannot be spent for B. That right? That there's a fixed amount of money that the protocol earns on a monthly basis, right? So it's pretty obvious that that's the case. What I'm saying is that we're not discussing about the aggregator. The aggregator has been a good idea since a very long time, and we kind of wanted that to happen for a while. Not because we dislike anyone, just because I thought, well, if you have a very important customer, you don't want that customer to be managed by someone else. That was kind of my um, idea. And when people will ask us, oh, why are you not integrating an aggregator? Well, our point was always, well, swaps is our core business. Why would we want to have our core business away? So for me, it was, we have never changed that position since we kind of started building. So for me, this is not the point. But what I'm saying is if the goal is, you know, more volume, of course, that one of those challenges is going to be, okay, you build your own aggregator. But then I can flip the question to you: how, like, are the marketing fund taking away money from potential money that can go to build the aggregator? And obviously the answer is yes. Or the money that's going to the interface is taken away from money that could be done to try to bring more chains. And again, yes. So my point of view is only from a prioritization, given that we have these huge, or like very difficult problems, not huge, but very difficult engineering problems, then you need to put all hands on that.
Real-
That's
I'm
my
gonna.
Can,
point of view.
Okay.
can I
Well,
can I address Kenton's concern with almost $0 budget? So Kenton, you mentioned what's wrong with us, having a product that we can send a THORChain user to and say, here's how you use THORChain. Um, and this will be a bit of a shameless plug, but I think other interfaces can do this as well. But for anyone listening, if you want to specifically use THORChain, in Edge, it takes 2 taps to change your settings to say, I prefer THORChain. And you will get a THORChain quote if it can surface the quote. Now go encourage the other interfaces to offer the same thing and direct them there. Maybe even make referral links where it activates that preference if you route through, the THORChain website, clicks on a link, goes to an interface, and now that becomes a THORChain preferred interface. That'll cost you next to nothing, and you would get at least what you just, were concerned about. Right. I mean, there's other reasons to build an interface, but at least the last one that you just mentioned, Kenton, which is we want a place to send THORChain users to use THORChain, trivially easy. And it's at least available today, with what we've built at Edge. And I encourage other interfaces that are even our competitors to go and do the same. So that, yes, you can direct people to use THORChain to the many interfaces that already exist.
And thank you. That's great. And actually, I'm happy for any of you guys supporting THORChain to plug yourself. So plug away. Um, uh, that's a fair, valid point, and I think that's people. Other interfaces made similar points, like with like Leo Dex, zero fee front end, Rune Edition on THORSwap, and I appreciate that all, guys. But there's also the shameless plug for THORChain, is that we want people using THORChain to like it and then buy Rune. And this is something that happened with THORSwap is that everyone was going to THORSwap, using it and thinking this is cool, it's awesome, and then they're buying the Thor token, thinking they're actually investing in THORChain. And so, we
Then they
want
don't become a recommended interface. Then they don't get listed on the THORChain website. You know, direct people to the interfaces that are the most neutral. Offer THORChain as a default setting if you can set, and don't have a confusing token. And so that's an easy solution. And there's still many of those.
Real quick, can I interrupt? I'll let Kenton respond to that, but I'm giving up on the notion that we're going to be able to really do a deep dive on THORWallet today, and I feel really bad about that. So one thing, Pedro, I would like to do, I think we might have to do this again, and I just think this is just a time in the community where this is a conversation that needs to happen, right? So because I really love THORWallet and I want to make sure we give you a platform to talk about all things, because we're like over 2 hours in and we haven't barely discussed THORWallet at all, and I feel really bad about that. So maybe Kenton, maybe we can do it again. Pedro, I hope you're okay with that. It's just, this is just a conversation that everyone wants to talk about, and I'm doing my best to trigger it back, but I don't think it's going to happen. But go ahead, Kenton. I just wanted to say that real quick.
no, yeah, I appreciate it. It's good. And you're right. Yeah, crypto XE, we should have you back and do a proper Thor wallet only. And actually, Paul, we would love to have you on for an Edge wallet
Oh my
only.
God, absolutely, dude.
But yeah, please, and you can plug away, pimp your product, please. Um, I guess just another comment, guys. Like if the money being spent on this front end is a fraction of a percent of the treasury, like it's to suggest this is stealing resources away from the engineering is like I'll tell you what, guys. If honestly this is the money and the dev time it takes to fix all those problems, I will trade it in a heartbeat. I will not. I'll be the one to push it forward. Okay. Um, I just in my mind, I'm respecting the devs that and these problems with the quotes and everything that is a much more expensive and much more involved and difficult process than what everybody might be suggesting. And this is so for me, from my point of view, is like, well, what can we do in the meantime? Like, I have agency. Patriot has agency. Boone does. What the Coke does. We can do like, what can we do to help THORChain and move THORChain forward? And okay, I think we need a front end. This is something we need. We think it'll solve a problem. And when like with Coke, what he said is we want somewhere to send our friends to. When we recommend THORChain, we want a place for them to go. And then same with like properly marketing THORChain to get the message out there. We need a call to action. We need a place to send people so we can send them to our interface. And then fingers crossed, knock on wood, don't want to jinx anything, but if this marketing works, we get volume on THORChain on our front end and the room price starts going up, that's more resources we have to put towards the engineering to hire the devs to fix these other issues with quotes. So then we can get going again on our partners and start showing up again. So, this isn't you know, these things all work together, right? And I'm doing what I can to try and move the THORChain forward. I'm not no way, shape, or form am I trying to say this is the only way forward. I'm doing what I can in parallel to try and get things going.
If I can just address one point here, and I think this is one of the areas where, for me, a little bit there's a dissonance, and I disagree because how, at least in my view, all of this evolved was step one, volume in torsion is going down. Then people want to find culprits. Oh, well, it's the interfaces. They're taking too much. Torsion is not making money. Oh, and then step three, solution to that, let's make our own interface. And this is the level of analysis and that I disagree with because fundamentally it's incorrect. So the reason why torsion volume went down, the reason why we have been outbeat had nothing to do with the interfaces. So, and this is where all this whole discussion, I'm a bit against going in this direction. But it is not saying, oh, well, it was at some point, it was a good idea to have its own interface. That's why Chainflea has its own. and near and so on. But the core premise of being volume is down, interfaces we make our own, or what you're saying, we need a place where we send our friends. I think that's just simply not true, right? Like there were many places where you could send. Even like for example, Leodex created its own zero interface, like, and it's perfectly fine that you say, well, I want to bring something new to the table, and you say my own algorithm is much better way of routing. Kudos, but let's not, like what I'm unhappy about is to to say this is gonna fix the problem that really is, like, if you do a root cause analysis, this is really not the reason why the volume is down, right? So and that's some of the message I want to put across. My message is not, oh well, we should stop the interface now. My message is to be realistic and saying we need to fix those problems whether or without the interface, and that
Um,
is the core
I
point.
I actually agree with you, crypto. I see this. So my original impetus to get our own front end was to we can have agency do our own marketing to get our own users because we like it's really hard for us to promote THORChain through another front end, right? And so that was the idea is that I understand the partners of wallets. You guys are everyone's trying their best to get users and volume, and I'm like, well, we can try this too. And and CryptoXE, you're the one that criticized me when I wanted to start with Trust Wallet and start promoting, THORChain there. You're like, well, why trust? What about us? And it's like, okay. And then same with Paul. You're going to get mad that I'm spending THORChain money to promote THORChain through Trust Wallet and not Edge Wallet. So then, which partner do we choose, right? And just becomes this like political mess. And so it's like, it's just plus it's just more cumbersome. It's just way more friction to try and promote THORChain through another interface when we can just have our own. And then we don't have to play politics with which partner we're favoring. And there's way less friction for the user. They just go to the site, thorchain.org. Okay, this is THORChain. I'm using it, done. Like it's just so much simpler. But that was the original for me. That was the original impetus to get going. Is that we have a way to we can do what we can to try to grow the volume. Um, yeah.
Just one point on the volume and the marketing. When I criticized that, what I advocated for was that we did it on a volume weighted version so that everyone is on equal footing. If you contribute volume to THORChain, you get X number of dollars. What I was not favoring was to say, well, basically Trust Wallet is the biggest, so they get all the money, because that for me didn't reach the goal, which was if you contribute, then you get resources. Obviously, it was the easiest to implement operationally, but my idea was, let's just do it volume weighted, right? If you're bringing more volume, if Trust Wallet brings more volume, good, they get a larger share. The
Yeah,
only thing I said was, oh,
but Trust Wallet was prioritizing THORChain at the time. So, like for example, Paul just says Edge Wallet doesn't have chain flip. Well, then that in my mind that bumps Edge Wallet to near top up my list because they have a better chance of trades going through THORChain. So I should from THORChain's point of view, we should prioritize promoting Edge Wallet versus Thor Wallet. You guys have chain flip, so
let's say this is true, right? How is this solving the core problem again, right? Like what I'm saying and what I keep, trying to grind is whether we like, it's not about Thor wallet not prioritizing THORChain, is that users want to swap the best routes with the best execution and the best price, right? And this is the core fundamental problem, right?
It's
So
it's not. The core fundamental problem is we just simply do not agree with each other. So that is what your users want to do, and I'm what I'm trying to get through to you guys. The THORChain users do not want to do that. The THORChain users want to use THORChain. And so, like, I think this is what's good with the front end is it kind of gives us some boundaries that you can focus on your users and what they want, and we can focus on the direct THORChain users and what they want. And this will be good because we'll both grow, apart, right? And it'll make you stronger. It'll make Edge Wallet stronger. Everyone will grow and focus on their users, their customers, and what they want. Um, and so we should all be happy. in the end, right? But different users want different things, right? And so not everybody wants the cheapest price. Like this is why like brands exist, right? People often will pay a premium for a brand they identify with. Um, so it is absolutely incorrect to say that the only thing the consumer cares about is the lowest price. This is fundamentally wrong. And so that is a market, that is a business strategy, that is a valid one, and it does exist, and you can do that. That is great. But there are other business strategies out there. Right. So the fundamental problem is we just, for some reason, I don't know how many different ways I got to explain or talk about. We just cannot, like, you guys can't accept that. So I don't know. I'm really at a loss, guys. I honestly feel like I'm in a twilight zone that we can't,
So
we
let me
can't
put you an
understand our point of
example,
view.
because obviously there's other business strategies. No one's saying it's like, oh, the only cost is what matters, right? Like convenience matters, brand matters. But going back to the example I put before, right? If someone wants to swap between Bitcoin and Ethereum, THORChain is a service provider, right? They execute the swap. Here is your Ethereum. See you later, right? People want to execute this swap. If we put this in the context of the example I said before, right? You want to tank your car. You want to put gasoline. The gasoline can be provided by Exxon, Shell. Are there some people that are Exxon fans? Maybe, right? But at the end of the day, people just want to fill their tank, right? And then they're just going to go there where it's more convenient for them, the one that's closest to their house. And when you are at the point of service, that's where the competition happens, right? Like who is in this petrol station? So first of all, you need to be in that petrol station to get volume, which is we need to be at the point of service. You need to be at Ledger, you need to be at THORWallet, you need to be at Sun. Very few people will drive to the Exxon labeled owned gas station. That's ridiculous. I mean, yes, some will, but that's not where the big pie is. And this is where I think we are kind of not being on the same page. Of course, you can have your own interface, but the big money and the big way to grow is to have distribution. So that's point number one. The second thing is once you are at the point of station, like where the user is, right, at the petrol station, then you compete with others at that place. Is it cheaper Exxon? Is it cheaper that? And then most people will just choose the cheapest option. Not everyone, but the majority will choose the cheapest. And this is not my perspective. This is from our experience of building for 3.5 years. This is what we see that happens. Very little. And if you guys want to disagree at that and then go through the experience, put the interface, learn your lessons, that's pretty fine. But what I'm saying is like all of these, we have seen it as we have experienced building, growing. Users care a lot on the interface what is cheapest. Obviously, if I have to remove my funds from Ledger, take it somewhere else, then they don't because it's a pain in the ass. But once whatever is available in Ledger, I would just choose the cheapest. Very few people will say, oh, well, in Ledger, I prefer my add-ons, and they don't care. They just swap the cheapest. So that is where I think we kind of disagree. It's not the only price strategy, but we need to have distribution. And once you have distribution, you need to be competitive.
The
Can
reason
I
that
ask you
users
one
care about
question?
the price is because that's how it's being presented to them.
Can I ask you?
Yeah, go
Can
ahead.
what is the I 100% agree. You can have different business models and different ways that you compete outside of price. For THORChain, if you remove someone holding room, what is the product differentiator between THORChain, Chainflip, Maya, or any other cross-chain DEX to a user that would differentiate to make them want to go through THORChain?
Freedom.
Great, exactly. Great question. Permissionless, no censorship. So chain flip sensors, right? Near they do too because it's all off-chain individually solvers. The only one that doesn't would be Maya, but they're like our friend, right? So, and this is the thing, like chain flip and near are really just define the front, define the back. So THORChain's value proposition is freedom, is uncensorship, permissionless, and
Isn't
this. Yeah,
Did you just mention that you're going to have to censor on your front end?
yes.
But
Okay.
So
No, the base protocol is open.
fair
though.
enough. Fair enough. I get it.
No, I don't think
Appreciate
that's a contradiction. No,
Uh,
I don't think it's a contradiction. The front end can be censored. That's okay. The base protocol must be permissionless. Anyone can make a custom memo and do whatever they want. This is not a contradiction. This is intrinsic to the first principle. I believe in THORChain. I only want to use THORChain. I only want to use my protocol because I have a gun to my head. I have a gun to my head. So do you, Paul. So does Pedro. So does G Dude. Everybody. We all have a gun to our head. I do not want any money, my own money, going to near. I don't want it to go to Chainlip. I want it to go to protocols that are willing to stand up on the virtues that the only thing that's going to result in the freedom of the world, and that is permissionless, no KYC. That is what we're doing here. This is for me, and I have to side with Kenton. And I know he's co-host and he's host, I'm co-host, and we do disagree. Kenton and I do, and we've done it publicly. But and a G Dude, I see your hand. I want to thank you for your patience. I will get you. But this is the thing that I want to say. I really don't understand this conversation at all, because I think it's so obvious, right? I mean, if you have third parties that are in control of THORChain's destiny, like a swap kit or a D kit or maybe a Leo kit or maybe a THORWallet kit or whatever, at the point there can exist a third party that, let's say, for example, subsidizes swaps. What's THORChain supposed to do, right? That is a competitive advantage they have because of the treasury that they may have. Sure, it's not sustainable, but it can hurt us really bad. If we do not have our own front end, if we do not have our own vertical integrated thing, we are actually surrendering the first principle strengths of THORChain, which we fought so hard for, like our uncensorable liquidity, like having our own pools, our own real layer one swapping mechanism. We are not using the first principles of what we fought so hard, endured for so long. So this is an advantage that THORChain has, is that we can do this. We can provide this because we literally have our own liquidity. And we have a community that understands the power of that liquidity and the ethos from which that liquidity is backed. Pedro, I'll let you go, but let's go to G Dude after that, as I do want to let you to respond.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, that's why when we started this conversation, we said we are all aligned on the ethos of THORChain, and that's why we want it to succeed. We believe it's a fundamental infrastructure. But again, like the THORChain interface does not complete any of these goals. So like, let's just not, it is fine. It's a good way to make extra money that could be put to other things. But again, like the core protocol is what matters, that is decentralized and so on. You will have to, you know, be compliant on the main interface. So that's not like I'm just trying to kind of remove this talking point and say, oh, we take our friends here. That's not true. Well, we will they can swap this freely. They can already do it in other places as well. So like my core issue with all of this was just, well, first, if we have a THORChain interface, let's just route to THORChain only. For me, that seems normal. Of course, from a wallet perspective or user perspective, interface builder, you want to have as many providers. Okay, one point. The other point was at some point, this interface, like again, to my previous point, do you still are going to be taking resources away from other things? So, and whatever we manage to build here, at the end, my goal is that we grow the volume of THORChain as, as a whole. If we just move volume around, that doesn't really benefit anyone. And I think that is a bit of the mishap on this conversation, that is a bit peer-to-peer, me versus you, THORChain versus THORSwap, THORChain versus THORWallet. I think that's not helpful at all. I think what is helpful is to recognize, number one, we need to become more competitive. Yes or yes. We don't want to agree, like if we don't want to see that, we are in big troubles. Second, having its own interface of THORChain is beneficial for certain things. Yes, it also has its disadvantages as well. And finally, is that the user wants things that cannot do now, right? That the reason why they're going to near is because they don't have Zcash or Polygon, or like, those are the core problems that that we need to address.
Yeah, this one, I'm going to go to G Dude here. This is one of those conversations where I'm really at a loss. I don't know what to say, because this is different what we're doing. It's not the same thing, because I love the fact that you have interfaces that will prefer THORChain. I think that's great. But right, I mean, with the marketing thing, it's literally a feedback mechanism to success. We market more volume, which equals percentage of the marketing budget going for more marketing, feedback. And I think that brings in more people. I think marketing THORChain, because THORChain right now, the STO, it's just a web interface. That I'm pretty sure people are going to bleed over to THORWallet, because it's nice just having, or even Edge Wallet or whoever comes up here and promotes. It's nice having a mobile wallet of which you can just do things. That is a competitive advantage that THORWallet has. But okay, guys, let's get to G Dude, if we can.
But sorry, Gito, I'll just add one quick thing, and because people want to buy Rune, they need a wallet to hold Rune,
Right.
right? And so they're going to use a Thor wallet, or forgive me, Paul, I don't know if Edge supports Rune, but they're going to need a
does.
wallet to hold Rune, right?
Go ahead, G Dude.
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Yeah, buddy, go ahead.
Oh, great. Look, actually, I wanted to bring it back to THORWallet, because it seems like you guys are going in circles, and we have been discussing this in the community for weeks now. And in the end, guys, you're both right. Like, THORChain needs its own front end and also needs a distribution network. So I would like to bring it back to THORWallet. I have a question for CryptoXE. It's actually also relevant for Paul. Because look, the way I see it, we can compete in price and quality or offering new things. So I was wondering, for the wallets, what kind of features would they be interested in, that maybe THORChain could add? I mean, there's a few coming out now. By example, limit swaps and then rapid swaps. There's also a lot of app layer stuff. But maybe that is not what they're interested in. But I'm wondering what kind of features from cross-chain swaps and DeFi in general would be interested for this kind of services, wallet services, so they can achieve their own strategic future. Thanks.
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I think things that are interesting are rapid swaps, the limit swaps. I mean, one of the things we see when we have multiple providers is that, if you do a swap in near, for example, it's pretty fast. I mean, there was a space, I think on Thursday, we were saying it takes 21 minutes. It doesn't. It literally takes 2 or 3 seconds to get it executed and done. Of course, then there's the question, oh, well, they are not fully decentralized, and that's a different topic. But for a lot of the users, they want to come in, they want to swap as fast as possible so they don't have execution risk, right? And they don't have. So one of the things that we can do, there have been some efforts done by THORChain, was to reduce the outbound queue, right? So we made it much faster. And the question in crypto is always a trade-off on security versus convenience. So the reason why these safeguards were put in place is because there's a hack going on, then you have time to catch it. Then there were some other fixes that were done where if you swap a lot in the protocol, then you kind of have some history, and then you're allowed to skip the queue, so to say. But I think that speed of execution matters a lot. So like, if we're able to make the swaps faster, that does have a big impact. Some people will prefer to do $200-300 less, but then they get their swap in 5 minutes versus 30 minutes. Yeah, that plays a role. The other thing is, like we have said a few times, but chains, right? Like, we do not have Arbitrum, we do not have SEC, we do not have several other chains, and there's a reason also for that, right? It's not always all complain. No, the reason for that is because having more chains means it gets more expensive for nodes to run, and then is the value of this extra chain paying off in revenue and so on. That has been kind of the the previous metric, but we need to have a faster way to have new chains embedded so that those swaps can happen. Like, if someone wants to, like, we added CCTP, which is a protocol from Circle, so that people have zero fees on USDC. Now, the disadvantage is it takes around 30 minutes. Similar concept. They don't want you to. If there's a hack, they can catch it and so on. But it does have an impact if you're able to swap quickly. People want that. We have seen that. And the other thing is, like, being able to have limit swaps, because then you remove a lot of the uncertainty. Right now, that execution is, most of the interface have a setup in their swap where if the swap falls below a certain threshold, then the swap will revert, so that you don't get really bad swap execution. But with limit swaps, then you can basically improve a lot the execution. The other thing that is important as well is um, what other features around this, like for example, if you think about competitors, right? Like why a lot of the volume gets captured by centralized exchanges is that if you do a swap there, it costs like less than 10 basis points. So on a dual swap, we need to be becoming a bit more competitive there. And something that Paul mentioned has been kind of discussion on the community for a while, uh, like the full spectrum liquidity model is not efficient, and Uniswap has already moved a couple of steps away from that, and it's kind of a difficult thing to do, but we definitely need to go there. Why? Because with lower liquidity, you can do much better swaps execution. So with the volume or with the LP that THORChain has as POL, we can serve way more customers. So I think those are the key things that user care.
Regarding that, actually, regarding your last point, do you remember if that's a problem of liquidity and slippage, right? I guess that's what you're talking about. If that was less of a problem before THORFi, before Rune crashing price, and we have way more liquidity in the pool. Because I used to use THORChain myself a lot more, and these days, especially for these small pools on base and also on Maya, to be honest, the Arbitrum pools, the slippage is pretty high, and I guess a low liquidity, it just doesn't give me a good price. I stopped using those products because of that. I'm wondering if you remember if that used to be better, assuming that at some point we're going to have more liquidity in the protocol once Rune recovers.
Yeah, I mean, if you have, well, right now we have the liquidity, which is like full spectrum. So like in order to have better swap execution, you just need much bigger pools. That's the only solution when you keep that model. Then basically the innovation that Uniswap brought to the table was concentrated liquidity model. Means that instead of putting the liquidity everywhere, right, like from minus infinity to infinity,
Yeah.
you focus it on, let's say one is at 0.6 now, whatever, you put it nearby there, right? So instead of putting everywhere, you just move it around. The disadvantage that this has is that then LPs need to become very active. So they need to move it around, otherwise they're out of range, and it comes with some issues there. But the key point here is that at the end, like it's all about swap volume. This is what THORChain service is to the world, right? Like we people allowing people to swap and in the best possible way, in a decentralized way. So eventually, if you have competition that they use a different model, right? They don't use LPs, they use like solvers. So basically, they have a guy on one side and another guy on the other side, and they're happy to provide that. They could be more efficient. I think that we should not go that way, but there's still efforts that have been done or are in progress to improve that liquidity problem. So there have been suggestions from like running Rojira, and then basically you run like um, limit order book with the pools, but this is quite complicated problem to solve. But in either way, I think we all need to recognize that this needs to be solved. Like you cannot remain 4 more years on a
Yeah, no, for
full
sure.
liquidity.
And I wonder, are you guys already testing a little bit with limit orders? I've seen a few bugs mentioned in Discord, and also at the same time, I haven't seen a lot of entities testing limit orders with secured assets. So I wonder if you guys have already tested the waters of that.
Yeah, so this is one of the next features that we're bringing in live soon. So we already have a design. It's just that it's a bit of a different user journey, because normally on a swap you just say, well, okay, I have, let's say, 1 Bitcoin, then I want to receive X. In this other journey, you would say, I have 1 Bitcoin, I want to buy Ethereum at certain price, and there's a couple of differences in the sense, like you need to make the user also the possibility that they can come and cancel the pending limit order or edit it, and like that user flow is a bit different. So we have been working on that, but we're gonna bring it very soon, and not just because it's the new feature, but I think this like first it makes the swapping way more efficient, right? Like, because when you put a limit order, you're basically adding liquidity to the protocol until that swap gets executed, so which is good. And it also improves swap performance, because if there's liquidity close to the price, then you don't really need to swap. You can just match orders. So all of that is going to be much better. And I hope that it gets added to other interfaces as soon as possible. We are in testing phase.
And that would actually have like a similar effect to concentrated liquidity, right? Definitely for stablecoin pairs, don't you think?
I guess yes. I mean, we need to see like how it is and end up. I think it was launched, then it was postponed, and now it's again live. So, but ideally, yes. If you have a lot of people are putting limit orders, then they're basically providing value or liquidity that is going to improve execution.
Yeah, I have one last question, it's a short one. Are these features also going to be available through your web interface, or only the wallet?
So we will add them in both places. It will come first to the mobile app, because we believe that mobile first is always the way to go. But yeah, will be available in the web as well.
Okay, great. Well, thanks a lot. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
And keep up the good work, by the way. We appreciate it a lot. All these interfaces, because these days there's a lot of controversy and people fighting, myself also. But especially me being an OG, I have used your services for years now, and we do value all the interfaces. It's just we're going through a rough patch. That's all. Thanks.
Absolutely love all the interfaces. That's well said. Thank you, G Dude, for taking the conversation another angle, because you are right. We were kind of going in circles there. Strong opinions on both sides, right? Paul, I thought you were going to speak. I just real quick, Paul, I wanted to give you have a really cool feature on Edge Wallet. I know it's a THORWallet fake, but this is something I really love. Don't you have the thing on Edge Wallet where, let's say you have your wallet and you are in danger, you can type in a code and it goes to a separate wallet with lesser funds. So like in a wrench attack, you can protect yourself with lower, like, you see what I'm saying? Like you would surrender that instead of your main wallet. Isn't that right?
Yeah, it's a feature we called duress mode, which kind of comes kind of inspired by alarm systems, where you can have a separate code that you enter and it's quietly notifies law enforcement to come to your home. Although we clearly do not notify law enforcement inside of Edge. And so, yeah, you can set up a secondary PIN that when you enter, it logs into a sub account where you can have actual real wallets that have a smaller amount of funds. And then those wallets are actually visible in your main account, so you could use those for your regular spending. So it looks like it's an actual active wallet. So yeah, it's a kind of our nod to be able to protect their people's funds in kind of the physical dangerous scenarios. But yeah, they're real wallets, so only put in what you're willing to lose in case of those situations. They're not fake; they're real money, and so you might actually be asked to sweep those funds. But yeah, it's a small nugget feature. Hope people enjoy it.
I wanted to talk about that because I thought it's so brilliant. I just wanted that publicly said so that raises the awareness, because that's something that I would love to use. So that's a brilliant design choice. With the Coke, you raised your hand. Go ahead. I can't hear you, brother, if you are speaking. Maybe it's me.
I can't hear him either.
Okay.
I see his
Okay.
hand up.
No.
Yeah, with the Coke, you're not audible right now.
Well, did Paul? You asked Paul a question, and he answered. But did Paul have something else he wanted to say too?
Yeah. I'm sorry. That's right. Go ahead, Paul.
Oh gosh, I think we've been talking minutes. I'm trying to recall now. It was something mentioned by Crypto XZ, but yeah, it escapes my mind. I apologize. If it comes to mind again, I'll throw up my hand up.
Yeah, no
You're all
problem.
good. And I don't feel bad. I brain fart right around this time in the spaces. I start brain farting myself.
Yeah, I get on
Um,
3 hours. Oh my gosh, it gets tiring.
um, did anybody else want to come up and speak with the Coke? You want to give it a try again?
Oh no, our Spanish brother is really struggling right now. No good. Might have to drop down, my friend, and we'll bring you right back up.
Um,
I
well,
do have a
maybe
go ahead.
go ahead.
Well, okay, so hey Crypt, well, let's try and we're gonna do another space with THORWallet. I think that's clear. We've spent too much energy not talking about THORWallet, and that's really hard, right? So I want to do it, but we're here, you're here. I want to know, borrowing is just getting started on Rajira. Very cool. No KYC, permissionless, access to real layer one loans. You can bid for liquidations. Completely cool. I'm going to go to THORWallet first. Are you guys planning on adding that? And then I'll kick it to Edge Wallet. So go ahead, Pedro.
Yeah, I think everything that has or is, you know, being built in Rojira is quite interesting. Obviously, from a THORChain perspective, this is optional value. Like if it works, then that's gonna create a lot of value. We have been in touch with the Rogera guys even before it was acquired by THORChain. Like because Rogera was, Kujira was integrated in Maya, and we integrated Kujira. I don't know, like a year and a half ago, or who knows when. So we actually were always. A provider, and they had the stablecoin and so on. And then when it changed to Rojira, we were excited about the possibilities. Primarily, like I was excited about a couple of things. So first, the interoperability between THORChain and Maya, that would be pretty exciting. The possibility also of lending, perpetuals, those were things that I think are big value drivers. We have integrated Rojira a while ago, so people can hold their Ruji assets in THORWallet. They can even stake. So we have added Ruji staking. We talked to the team and we said, "Hey guys, we're looking to explore perpetuals." And the I think the perpetuals is still an ongoing process to build them, grow them, and so on. So we say once you guys are ready, we'll retake that conversation. In the meantime, we integrated another provider, but we always kind of open in that perspective. And I saw the post about lending. I think it is interesting. We always take it a bit of um, careful approach now after for some reason lending is very very complicated, like in crypto, because it's over collateralized, and there's a lot of potential for people losing money. But like that's something that is definitely interesting for us. We have been working on expanding our real world asset offering to our users, and that would be a good fit once that kind of matures a little bit more.
Yeah, perfect. And also, oh, hang on one second. Okay, there we go. Sorry, I was double, my audio was messed up on my end. So okay, perfect answer. And then for those who know, the lending design, it's nothing to do with THORPi. It's based on previous proven design, like kind of like Aave and things like that. So just a little FY there. Paul, I'll kick it to you. Are you guys planning on adding it?
Yeah, so we don't have it currently on the roadmap, but just to give you people a little bit of context, we had publicly went to quite a few events promoting what we had built with borrowing, specifically with Aave years ago, and we had a full integration to be able to take Bitcoin, swap it into tokenized Bitcoin on Ethereum and Polygon, automatically deposit it, take out a loan, and then settle it right into a bank account or debit card in like one sitting. We connected all the dots to make that happen, and never quite got it out the door because the exchange partner that would settle it to fiat effectively went bankrupt, or yeah, pretty much went out of business. And so that code is still sitting there. It's probably rotted a bit, but we've been anxiously waiting a time to kind of bring it back. And so Ruggiero is one that we definitely are considering, as well as a few other protocols as well. I mean, there's also Bitcoin layer twos that would be more suited to the Bitcoin maxis. But know that, as a team and as a product, the borrowing through DeFi was a very, very compelling integration that, you know, we had put in a tremendous amount of work already in the past. And we definitely want to see the light of day for that product, especially when it's end-to-end integrated. You know, it's like, you know, a lot of people on our team do that, you know, do the crypto backed borrowing, but it's always a multi-step process. So we want to tie it together into a single single step and do all the steps, you know, behind the scenes. And I like the fact that, you know, even if we, whether we use Rogero or not, we like the fact that being able to use a DEX solves one of the problems, which is being able to get something like Bitcoin, which has no smart contract capability, get it into a tokenized form, and then automatically have that deposited into a smart contract, which can then automate the rest of the steps, which you can't do with a CeFi swap exchange. And so that could definitely reduce some of the effort that we had put in, you know, going into, I'd say, our second iteration of this kind of a feature. But no, it's a very, very compelling and interesting feature. And every time we've pitched it, people said, please, when can I have it? And so it's what I call not quite on the roadmap, but waiting anxiously to get placed on it once we kind of have decisions on which protocols we use.
Beautiful, man. Beautiful. And I see there's some XRP people in the audience. Thank you for being here, guys. Love you guys for talking. And also some other people in here. XRP is an asset that is supported on borrowing on Rogero. Again, it just got released. It's a gated release. Bug testing, UI polishing, all that stuff still has to happen. But I think it went, what, 2 days ago now? So very exciting. Super, super exciting. Real layer one borrowing. The demand is there, right? I mean, THORFi was obviously a disaster, but you can't deny that it wasn't in demand. At least $200 million worth of demand. So there you go. But jokes aside, very exciting stuff. Kenton, do you have anything else? I know we're coming up on the 3-hour mark. It's been a long conversation. Go ahead.
That's what I was gonna say. I think we should probably start wrapping it up.
Yeah.
But maybe we should throw out the crypto XZ. You know, it's definitely let's we'll message each other. Let's set up another time to do a proper, you know, discussion about just about THORWallet. But is there anything that you want to leave us with? You know, any kind of like last words? Anything you want to tell us about? Anything we haven't talked about you want to touch on?
Yeah, I think. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I think this is very very healthy. You know, everyone puts uh, you know, their word, what they think, and at the end, you know, we're all pushing in the same direction. That's what I believe, and it's an interesting conversation to have. And there's a lot of things that we're building in Third Wallet we're excited about, and it's been an incredible year for us, and we hope it continues that way. We are really excited about bringing more real banking features for users, but using DeFi, which is kind of one of the reasons we are here. Right? Like you can't, if you cannot spend your funds, why does it even matter? So yeah, we're looking to expand our card into the US, which will be a fantastic option. And there's a lot of things we want to integrate. And we recently made the announcement that Tron was live, so that people who want to swap through THORChain were able to do that. There's a lot of more chains that we want to integrate, especially privacy related things are also quite interesting. Um, but yeah, I'm happy to come back again and give a bit more deep dive into the alpha of what is being built. We have a packed um, 2026, and you know, in a way, the market is not being good, but it's been good for building. So from that aspect, I'm happy. It has allowed us to be hyper focused on building new features and just trying to provide the users a good place to swap and do their business.
Well said. Kenton, do we next week? I'm sorry, I should know this. Is it going to be Unstoppable or
Y-
Rogera?
Yeah, next week we're gonna have Unstoppable, and we moved to Rogero to the week after.
Okay, all right, guys. So that's going to be the lineup, and then from there we'll figure out. Maybe we'll do THORWallet, maybe we'll do something else. I don't know. Well, actually, that might be around Christmas time. We'll figure it out, guys. It's always in flux. It's a holiday season. I'm just really appreciative that with the host and co-host up here, that the two speakers that are remaining, are both fantastic builders. And one thing I wanted to remind, because I said in the very beginning, the space has been a long space. We've lost some people. Both Pedro from THORWallet and Marcel, all those guys, and Paul, whether or not you agree or disagree with me, or whether or not you agree or disagree with them, make it no doubt that these teams represent our ethos 100%, and we owe them a great deal of gratitude, not only for the THORFi stuff, but also for just helping to build the ecosystem and the reason why it is robust and as strong it is today. So with that being said, go ahead. I'll give the last two closing marks to Pedro and then Paul, and then we will wrap this baby up. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you guys. Interesting conversation. If anyone has not heard about THORWallet, now is the time to go check it out. And good and bad, let us know what is missing. We recently also released our token Titan, now available on Binance Alpha, other places that are coming as well, decentralized aerodrome. So that is exciting as well. We have the fee return rewards. We believe that that's the way to go, create value for the holders. And yeah, we're excited to have to come again and discuss more about what we have in the future and what new banking features we have, what new chains, and a lot more stuff to come. Thank you, guys.
Perfect. Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on the space. I just kind of caught this morning and happened to hop on. I got to reiterate what was said in the sense that we're always looking for feedback on Edge. And if anyone hasn't tried it out yet, give it a shot. Edge.app. I think unlike a lot of the wallets that have come out over the past 5 years, we kind of go back to like 2014 when almost everything had a very strong focus on privacy. And so we do too. And part of that is we don't really know what people are doing in our app, And so please give us feedback. Let us know what you like, what you don't like. And that's the only way we grow and improve. So yeah, definitely give it a shot. I appreciate the convo. I love that a community can come together and very, respectively disagree, agree on things. That's how you improve. You just don't want an echo chamber of everyone just kind of like circle jerking and, just, praising each other for how great everything is. So this is how we improve. So again, yeah, thanks for having me. Much appreciated. Everyone have a great weekend.
No circle jerks. That is, I think, the most important message here. No circle jerks. Don't tell us why we're right. Tell us why we're wrong, right? If you tell me I'm right and I'm wrong, it does nothing. Always seek to improve. Always seek to be better, right? Because no one up here is right about everything. It's impossible. We are imperfect creatures. Thank you guys so much. It's been a wonderful conversation. Thank you, Kenton, for firing up this X Space. We will see you guys all Thursday, next Thursday. I think maybe the holidays. We'll see with Chad, but we'll definitely see you next Saturday. I hope everyone has a great remainder of your weekend. Bye, everyone. Take care.